Thank you. There's like 20 on there. Okay. Good evening. Can I have a motion and a second to re-enter into public session? Motion by Mr. Isonius, second by Ms. Pikowitz. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. If everyone can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence in memory of Officer Jason Rivera and Wilbert Moorer of the new NYPD and all of our police officers who are willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice for our safety. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I will pass it over to Dr. Pelletieri for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Piccirillo. We're going to jump right in with our budget presentation and Mr. John O'Keefe.
Yeah.
It's coming. All right, everyone can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, good evening, everyone. This is our second workshop as part of our budget presentation series. Just go through a quick timeline. We have 3 more main presentations, February 16th, March 9th, and March 23rd. We adopt our budget on April 13th. We hold our required public hearing on May 4th, and the annual budget vote is on the 17th of May. So just a recap of the last presentation. That presentation is on the website, so please, if you've missed it, take a look. But it was the non-instructional areas of the budget, our general support, our transportation of students, employee benefits, our debt service, and interfund transfers. That would be monies either spent for capital fund projects or transfers to support our summer special education program. And in that presentation, we covered about $160 million in expenditures, which is nearly 45% of the initial draft budget. And tonight, again, we continue breaking the budget down into pieces. Tonight is student activities and support services. So it's our athletic programs, our grants office, our phys ed, special education, health services, psychologists, social workers, our student club and activities, and our interscholastic athletic programs. And tonight we're going to cover about $70.5 million worth of expenditures, or nearly 20% of the initial draft. The presentation that we'll look at in 2 weeks will be primarily curriculum instruction and the balance of the budget, and then we'll continue to hone the final numbers from there. And the clicker is giving me trouble. So I do realize that obviously from home and possibly even here in the audience, this is a little difficult to see. But what I do for you is I break down the various functional groups and I show you those categories. And if you look at the first column, more towards the left side, you'll see the proposed budget for the coming school year. The column to the right of that is the budget for the present school year. And the 3 columns to the right of that are the actual expenditures in each of those out years. So the top category is interscholastic athletic administration. That is basically the athletics office itself. It's the director, the assistant director, the 3 clericals that support the department, as well as the 2 athletic trainers. No changes there, just changes in salary due to contractual obligations. Physical education, the $49,000, that's a static number that we keep year to year. That's just merely the supplies and materials for phys ed and some reconditioning expenses. Health services, this is our district-wide nurses. You'll note that it looks like there's a slight drop into next year. There's no changing in the nursing. If you remember in last year's budget, we did add 2 nurses, 1 for each high school to complement their staff. The reduction that you're seeing is Also in this line, we budget for one-to-one nurses that we employ for students with special needs that need a one-to-one nurse throughout the day. We had 4 of those nurses budgeted in this current year. We did not need any of them, and as of right now, we do not anticipate needing any of them next year. So those nurses have been removed, therefore you're seeing that slight reduction in that line. Interscholastic athletics, that's the entire athletic program itself. And you look at the current year, the 3.1 million, you look at next year, 3.4, then you start looking at the out years and you wonder, why is the number so big? Just keep in mind that the 2 most recent years, obviously a lot of athletic activity was interrupted by COVID. So you ask then, why is there a change from the current year to next year? No, at this time, this budget does not include any additional sports or any changes. I know there are some discussions about potentially adding a team or teams, but this budget is just a rollover of the current budget. The increase that you're seeing primarily, other than contractual increases in salary, is about another $260,000 in equipment needs for the department. They've got a need to replace the north and the east fitness rooms. A lot of the equipment is beyond its useful life and needs to be replaced. The golf carts that the trainers use are in need of replacement. And over at High School East, both the weight room floor and the padded wrestling room walls are in need of replacement. So those items are added. We did discuss in the last presentation that obviously this initial rollover budget is much higher than our anticipated revenue will allow. So Mr. Sachs is working with each of the directors, looking at projected expenditure needs for next year and seeing what can be pulled out of this budget and possibly purchased in the current year, to help fill that gap for next year. But overall, this area of the budget, which is about $6.6 million in expenditures, as you can see, is only increasing by about $129,000, or exactly 2%.
John, before you flip it, there's been discussion about adding middle school tennis.
Correct.
If there was interest and we did do that, is there money enough in there to do that for this year coming up? Or is that a 2-year out program?
We would have to add money to the number you see here. That does not include that program.
Okay.
Because again, that program, we don't know if we were talking about a single program, are we talking about 3 programs, or what that looks like. But that would have to be a decision we make along the way, which is another reason, if I can pull a few $100,000 worth of the equipment out of there and make those purchases here in the spring, that could help us not only to balance the budget that obviously is not in balance right now, but it'll free up monies for other things. So again, very difficult to see, and you look at a budget of over $3 million for athletics, and you're like, what does that include? Well, Sachem Athletics is obviously a very large program. We do have over 150 teams. There are 255 coaches, and over 4,700 students are on rosters. So, I mean, we do know that certain students do play on multiple teams, so it's not necessarily that there's 4,700 athletes individually, but collectively there's 4,700 students that fill out rosters. And just to give you an idea, when we look at the budget for the course of the year, I break it down by the fall, the winter, and the spring seasons, and then the varsity sports, junior varsity sports, and middle school sports. Again, you take a look at this at your own time. And on the far right side, I just try to put those dollars to those sports so you get a feeling, what does varsity sports cost the district in the fall? Or what does JV cost us in the spring? The table over on the right side of the screen helps identify, when you say you're spending $2.1 million on sports, where is that money going? This slide here is just basically a touch-off point. I'm going to shift over to the program to our athletic director and assistant athletic director. In your Friday packet this past week, Ms. Trombetta provided you with a lot of information on our different teams, participation, number of kids that try out for teams, if there are any cuts or if there are any children that leave the program. So I just thought that this would be a good slide to put into the program to touch on now for athletics. So Mr. Butel, Mr. Torregrossa.
Thank you. So as you can see, In 2019-2020 school year, 4 athletic teams were added to each middle school based on student interest and to afford more opportunities for kids to be part of a team. Those were the winter sports of boys and girls basketball and boys and girls volleyball. Before the additional teams were created, in 2018-2019, we had 727 students try out, 516 students were cut. In 2019-2020, we had 780 students try out, with numbers drastically went down to 376 students that were cut. Last year, we didn't have a team due to COVID, so we don't have data on that. This year, the 21-22 school year, we had 714 students try out, with 392 students that were cut. Roughly, we've created opportunities for 220 additional athletes to be on the team. For those we determined were high-risk cut teams in our district in those winter seasons of sports of basketball and volleyball. For the last 5 years, we've been doing hard monitoring of numbers of students trying out, what teams finish with, as well as cuts, students leave teams, and things of that nature to gather data. And we meet annually with our coaches. They fill out end of the year reports. We meet with coaches as a need basis to determine the needs of different programs and numbers and participation and things of that item. We're currently looking at a couple different issues in the district that we've been monitoring. I had conversations with our different coaches of the programs, and may have to make some decisions come the fall, or just try to figure out how we can take care of those teams that those numbers maybe aren't doing as well as others. We have in the past. We were able to get coaches and teachers into a building. We identified with Ms. Trombetta a situation that we had, and that team more than doubled the amount of students that came out for the team. So it worked out and improving us well. On the horizon, we are looking, Ms. Taragosa's taken over a project of adding girls flag football this year. Ring as intramural, teaming up with the Jets and 8 other teams, school districts in Suffolk County, with the anticipation that next year we can offer it in the spring season as a sport if it comes to fruition. The other thing that is happening right now in the county is there talks of bringing back 7th and 8th grade teams, seeing what kind of interest. I serve on the modified committee for Section 11, which oversees middle school sports, and we're going through that next week. There's a meeting to discuss it, but the benefits to 7th and 8th grade teams allows those kids to stay together, so we don't divide our talent. All the 8th graders would stay together, the 7th graders would stay together. They would play together as students, and then they would transition to the high school, moving up together, rather than what we're doing now for some of those sports. We have 2 teams where we're dividing the kids by talent. We have to create equal teams. So that's something we're looking for as we move forward. And the last thing, we've been looking at the possibility of adding a middle school tennis program. I know Mr. O'Keefe, whatever direction we go, we kind of envision starting with one tennis program for our middle school children. It would be housed at Sachem North. Those tennis courts are available because in the high school, we currently have one tennis team for the boys and girls that is at Sachem East. And that's been based on numbers years ago. It was made in financial, and that's currently the model that we have. The children would be bused to Sachem North from the middle schools. We would look to have 2 coaches. Just some data on that. We did 2 surveys. We put together a Google survey. We listed it to all the parents of the middle school children. And we also had our phys ed staff poll the kids during class. On an average, we averaged those numbers. Looked about 15 girls, 15 boys in each school that showed an interest. I'd be happy to, if we could get 20 to 25 that would actually come out when it was put to fruition, to come out to make those middle school tennis teams come about.
I was going to ask, just any questions for Mr. Butel or Mr. Torgros while they're here at the mic?
Laura, please.
Thank you, Mr. Butel. So as we've always discussed, our enrollment continues or was declining. So some of the sports were consolidated, like bowling, golf, as you said, tennis. So as you monitor the numbers, because the numbers that were sent show in some sports, like a winter or spring, the numbers drop, especially in the high school, like almost 200 players from previous years. And so I was just wondering, when you talk to the coach or parents or players doing like an exit survey, if I saw some of the teams, had just enough like a field hockey team, I think was very low. Samoset had very low numbers. So not that we want to take away any opportunities or take away teams, but if one school has so low numbers, they're almost not having enough to field a team, and then other schools are still having cuts. Is there any thought as to why or how to make that better? Or, in physical sports like football, if you're running a program with just enough players to play and there's no subs or anything like that, then that also becomes a safety issue.
Right. So in the sport, one of the sports that was low one year, had the low turnout. We didn't have coaches in the building. We were able to get a coach into the building, which really helped double those numbers for that football program. We're well aware of Samoset this year. We had a couple low numbers turnout for a few teams at Samoset, and we've talked to the coaches and tried to get that participation up. Even one of our coaches who has been there for many years and always had 50 kids in the team had a low turnout this year, in the 20s. And I talked to a couple other athletic directors, and we don't know in some of the sports, even if you see our track and field numbers, how low they are at the high school level. Is it because of COVID that kids just aren't coming out? Are we in a cycle right now where participation? So we're looking at those things to see, tracking it, and where is that participation going? We're aware of another situation, East Girls Swimming right now. We're looking at those low numbers, and we may have to make a decision come August if we're able to run a team or combine the team. Now understands where that's two high school model under one umbrella as Sachem. It's a lot easier for us to create a schedule now and drop that schedule in August and combine those teams than it is to either try to create another team after schedule has been created or to drop a team before and then have the kids that come out. So we're monitoring that and we're aware of that. The numbers, I've spoken with our coaches and our head coaches about the numbers, and we don't know if it's cyclical or there's a lot of, again, it's just conversation. It's not data, it's not proof, but what other factors are determining this? So maybe because of, maybe it's a COVID thing. We're still coming out of COVID.
Right. But also, so when there were the two teams, you had a graduating class, let's say from each high school, over 1,000, over 1,200 from each high school. Now we're having graduating classes of 500 to 600 from each high school. I would think that makes a difference in the number of people trying out.
Yeah, it's something that will continue to track and look at that data as we go forward, and just keep monitoring the numbers as we
And
go
again,
forward.
when you made the determination to combine some of the sports, bowling, swimming,
So those numbers,
golf, I just want us to be aware, because again, don't want to cut opportunities, but if we have teams in middle school that are losing 40 to 50 points a game, not about winning, but those kids then aren't having a good experience, and it might turn them off from going out and trying in high school. So not that we need to win, but losing over 50 points a game is not being competitive, and I don't think anybody is looking for that either.
right, and we have both sides of that. We have some teams that are doing very well and some
Right.
and some that are struggling, and it's based upon obviously without the teams that they're playing, the talent that they have, and what goes on. I spoke to the one coach about the one situation, and they were developing team, and you don't know in the next year or two if that's that could swing the other way moving forward.
Yes, no, I agree with all of that. Just that we should keep monitoring it and not wait until there's
Right.
not enough kids to
Right.
field a team. Then what do we do? If
Right,
we
without a doubt.
constantly monitor it and then make decisions. So
We've talked
that's
at times our numbers are skewed. Like you could see one middle school, they may have 50 students come out for a team, and someone else only has 15 come out for a team. We've never really gotten to the idea. Would we? I don't even know if it's feasible. We have to really do our homework and make some phone calls and conversations. But before we start combining middle schools and putting all those
Right.
kids together, and then busing, and then that being associated with their community and things that is that a route, an avenue that we would consider? Those are thoughts that we thought about.
Right. And I agree that the thing is to give kids opportunities. So if the numbers are dropping low, if we could find out why and do something, proactive to stop that from happening. And then another question that I have, looking at the numbers, for instance, like on a high school varsity basketball team, 13 kids or 14 kids tried out and they cut like 3. So they kept 10 or 11. If we're giving kids opportunities, not every kid's going to play.
Yeah, that
And
happened a few
everybody
years ago.
gets that.
Mhm.
But
That was addressed.
just my opinion.
Any other questions, Mr. Sarnia?
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
You're
Just Section 11, are there any sports that Section 11 requires a certain number of participation? And in essence, then also, if there's a maximum that we'd have to cut, or?
There's not so much a maximum, but there are minimums on the state and in the handbook. There are minimums, like, for example, football, 16, I believe, is the minimum number that you can safely run a football team. If you fall less than 16, then obviously you can't play. There's really no sense of maximums that I'm aware of. Like our girls track team one year, I think, had 150 girls on it. Obviously they don't take 150 girls to every meet, but they would take 2 or 3 buses to some of the meets where they could run. Sometimes you can only enter, like, especially, the last few years we've seen, they're only allowing us to enter 60 participants into a track meet. So you can only come with 60 kids. So the coaches have to make schedules and make lineups and adjust there, for other reasons going in. But a lot of times, they'll bring 100 and something, track athletes to a meet, and they'll participate.
So when I saw the cuts in those sheets, those cuts were the result of something happening, that student not doing something. The reason why the coach would cut them then is some other reason, not because the league required it.
No, they would have tryouts and they would form the teams based on ability. And also, like, for example, a basketball team, I mean, we could debate how many kids can play, but typically they'll keep anywhere from 16 to 20 kids on a basketball team at the middle, especially the middle school level. And with the format that they play, with the 5-period format, and you can't play more than 3 quarters by those rules. And as you move forward, maybe 6 or 7 kids will play a quarter. So they'll look to, keep those 15 to 18 kids into the game. As the numbers start to get higher, obviously it gets a little more difficult to get more kids in. So that's kind of like an estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
Ms. Patel, you say that this talks are institute 7th and 8th grade teams. Okay, I'm assuming that that's countywide. The conversations that have been had in Section 11.
Yeah, so countywide. So a survey went out to all athletic directors to see their interest for certain teams, if they want to go to a 7th and 8th grade model, if their school district wanted to keep the same model, the same of 2 equal teams in their model. That's only for schools that have 2 teams per sport. So,
Do you see that trend in Sachem, where there's a need to possibly bring back the 7th grade team and a separate 8th grade team?
we did it.
based on the numbers.
Based on the numbers. I think it does help your numbers when kids know that they'll be facing against all kids of their own grade level. I think I've seen it. We've done it before, and it's been positive where students came in and 7th graders were 7th graders. So now all the 7th graders are trying out for a team. Years ago, when we had a lot more teams, at the time we ran it in quite a few sports. And I remember a conversation I had with a coach, and he disagreed with the philosophy of it. But then after the year, he said, "You know what? This actually was great for the program because all those kids played together and worked themselves up."
And you think the underclassmen are a little bit hesitant about coming out and competing against an older level,
I think so.
and that's what's keeping our numbers down.
Yeah.
All right. No, I appreciate it. I did have another question. It slipped my mind, but one thing I did notice in the information that you provided for us is that when you go look back 3 or 4 year period, for example, you look at like some of the teams that are limited to a certain number of kids. You can't have 50 or 60 kids on a soccer team.
Right.
But what I noticed is that 4 or 5 years ago, there may have been 19 or 20 kids on a soccer team, but now you look at the last couple of years and you're starting to see 29 and 30 on a soccer team. And I commend the coaches for increasing the size of the team to give the kids the opportunity, especially through these really, really tough times. I know my daughter plays soccer, and there are kids that may have under normal circumstances go back to old Sachem, where it was one team, probably wouldn't have made the team. And while they don't see a lot of the field, they do see the field. The coaches do get them in, and they're grateful for that.
Yeah.
So I got to commend the coaches that have increased their rosters a bit to be able to provide more opportunities for kids. But if what you're saying is that we may have to look at the 7th and 8th grade team to try and encourage more children to come out and play, certain, that's something we could look at, for future budgets. Absolutely. Thank you.
Welcome. Sabrina?
Well, that leads into my comment. Could we maybe look into doing maybe clinics at like a 6th grade level, like tennis, if we're going to bring in tennis? There might be a child who's never picked up a tennis racket or limited time that maybe if they came to the clinic, they saw that they have some ability, some interest, that then they would come out for the team in 7th grade, even with other sports. So just maybe some of the sports where we're seeing a decline, we want to give more opportunities. Maybe some kids would step up if in 6th grade or even 5th grade, we held some type of clinics for them where they can come and just play for fun, but then maybe realize, hey, I like tennis, I like soccer, I like, girls swimming, something like that. I don't know if that's feasible or if it has to be teamed with a SIAG or like that kind of deal, just trying to get those kids that are about to go into 7th or 8th grade, maybe gain some interest there.
Like
If that's
tennis-
possible, I don't know the
yeah.
legalities and.
We've tried some things over the years. The coaches donated their time and would try to get to the different elementary schools and junior highs and offer clinics like that. We try to do an intramural program at the middle school level. Not in the winter, obviously, because there's no gym space. But in the fall and the spring, we try to get kids interested there if there's interest in intramural program. I know that SIAG they run a tennis program, and that's some of my conversations with Mr. Holden. About gaining that interest in the community and looking at it. Because typically what we've done, if we had children that wanted to play tennis, knowing we didn't offer a middle school team, they would go through a process of the APP process, so selection classification, and look to move those children up to the high school and the JV. It may not be the best fit, but that's what we've been doing to accommodate that. And it's been a handful of kids, 3 or 4 a year into that means, but we can definitely look at something like that to offer clinics.
Well, because I agree. I think building camaraderie and teamwork with the people of your grade level, with friendships and things like that, I think you're going to see a growth in someone versus moving like a 7th grader up to, a high school level where, they're definitely at a different level mentality wise, that to be on a team with your friends where it becomes a social thing and, a competitive thing. I think that's a little bit more healthier for the students. So if there's a way we could kind of, get these kids to kind of try out and put themselves out there a little bit more and try something that maybe they wouldn't have.
Okay, thank you. We can look at that.
Matthew?
Yeah, Sabrina kind of said what I was going to say. So you said you had 15 per junior middle school?
Yeah, so we took an average. Mr. Terragosa set up a Google survey that went out to all the communities, and based upon some of the results we got from Google survey, we couldn't sort out if it was from parents or kids, and we had a large turnout. I joked with him in the office and said, we have so many kids, we're going to have another football team at one point. So I don't know. So then we asked the phys ed teachers to do the same, and the numbers were different than the Google. So we took an average, to try to get an idea of the 15.
So is that boys and girls, or was it separate?
So it'd be about 45 girls and 45 boys.
Okay. And which is that's a fair number.
That's a very good number.
So to Mrs. Pickowitz's point, I'm thrilled that the number's that high, because if tennis isn't part of the culture, if they're not exposed to it unless their parents are tennis players.
Right.
So that something like even having the varsity kids come down to North and do a little clinic with middle schoolers. Yeah, that's a great idea. And how many courts do you have at North?
7.
And are we looking to maybe be able to start this in the fall with the girls
Yes.
and then spring with the boys?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Especially, I already put in, because section looks for information to build schedules. So we're already earmarked and put notification to them that we would be looking to open a team, because I don't want to get to a situation where we got locked out of not getting a schedule and having a team. Like I said before, it's a lot easier to drop a schedule than it is to add a schedule after a certain deadline. And the section asked for that about a couple of weeks ago. So it's a placeholder.
Is there a deadline? What's the deadline for us to tell them? You said it's already passed. Is that what you
No,
said?
they start collecting information. I mean, I could call section and see exactly.
Is it before we have to do the budget, or is it?
No, we could wait, because like I
Okay.
said, even if they create the schedule and we drop the schedule, it's not the best practice to do, because obviously all those other teams lose it. But
Lose a game, yeah.
But there may be some wiggle room if I talk to Section 11 about when is that exact date. I would assume it's probably in May or June, because they know too longstanding about the difficulties with budgets, so they usually wait till after that point.
Anyone else?
Can I just jump in for a moment? Gentlemen, while you're still there, I know we talked about it or touched upon it, but I want to highlight something for a moment. The New York State Public High School Athletic Association today announced the creation of a girls flag football pilot program here in New York. We're associated with the Jets. Maybe we'll have some better outcomes perhaps than the Jets over the past few years. As a Giant fan, I shouldn't be talking, but to see our young ladies out there on the field, they're going to have 7-on-7 football. I understand flag football. They'll be playing on our turf fields. There'll be amazing opportunities. We have an East team and a North team. I see they have jerseys already. A great deal of donations took place through Nike and some other programs. I really want to appreciate your work in making sure that that happened and took place. It's a great opportunity for our kids. I'm wondering, do we have a coach yet for the team? The reason I say
there's a
that,
lot of interest.
there is a lot of interest. Well, I was on the Long Island Class C champion flag football team in 1989. And it cost me my thumb. I have a screw in this thumb from being quarterback. It's going to click, you know. There's a screw in there. So I had to transition to safety. But I do have that trophy at home. I can bring it in. Perhaps we could talk about an interview or
I
something.
think that'd be a
along
great
the lines.
motivational speech one
It's a
day for
great-
the girls.
Well, yeah, never mind that I got injured. But, ACL issues as well, but it is great fun. It's a great opportunity. I understand that this year they can do their other sports, which are lacrosse or softball, and still participate in this, at least for this first year. And then perhaps they'll have to make a tough decision going forward. But I can't wait to see them out on the
Right,
on
and the
our
games are
fields.
slated. The schedule's not been created yet, but they're looking at Saturday contests.
Fantastic.
So impact.
Thank you so much.
However, we will be opening up with Sachem East versus Sachem North on a Monday night under the lights.
Oh, yeah. All right. At least it's not Friday
Monday night
night.
football.
Okay. Monday Night Football. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you both
gentlemen.
for
Both of
coming.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. All right, and later in the board agenda, you'll actually see that donation from the New York Jets. It's a combined donation totaling $20,000 of both financial support to run the teams as well as supplies and materials, totaling the 20 grand. So we're going to transition out of athletics now. We're going to move on into special ed. We got some great shots. Again, difficult for you guys to see in the back, but this is our summer SESI program, their wet pants sailing program that they do. And over on the far right, we had a great year-end production over at Winona. Actually, Ms. Slattery joined me there. I got to wear a beautiful cat in the hat and had a lot of
I don't see
fun.
that picture of you in the cat in the hat there.
Yes, I do have that picture. All right, so this section of the budget is one that's still causing us some challenge. It is a large component of the budget. So you'd start taking a look at the numbers here. Just these four functional lines alone, you're looking at over a $3.8 million year-to-year increase, or over 7%. So the very top line, the 2250 functional code, is our special education code. You're seeing a year-to-year increase from the current year to the projection for next year in that one line of $3.76 million. And obviously, the first question you have is why? Well, this year we started off having to add 17 FTEs, so 17 new employees into the department that were not actually budgeted for this time last year. So we absorbed 17 additional staff members into special education in 21-22. So that's one of the reasons for the leap, because those 17 FTEs are about $1.1 million. If you continue down through your budget notes that you have in front of you, you see a slight drop in private tuition, monies that we pay to a DDI or another organization for special services. But you're seeing a $1.8 million increase in BOCES services. So we have in-district students who are being referred to BOCES programs. But the other thing that's happened this year is we've had a large number of students transition into Sachem, new residents into Sachem, that are already in BOCES programs. So initially, obviously, I have to budget that they'll be staying. Now, there is the possibility after CSE that they could come back. But right now, I need to budget as if they're going to stay in those BOCES programs. So you're seeing that nearly $2 million increase in BOCES educational services. And also later in the agenda, you're going to notice a $600,000 budget transfer. Part of that budget transfer is because we don't have enough money in our BOCES education line to pay for those students that have transitioned into Sachem. So we do have extra monies in our private education line. We're just swapping one for the other. So overall, again, that's the heavy hitter in this particular area of the budget. Committee on Special Education, those are monies that are set aside to run the special education meetings throughout the summer. But the biggest piece of that nearly $2 million budget, this is where we budget for our contractual nursing services. So not only do we have our own nurses in district, but we employ about a half dozen other agencies that come in and help us provide services, whether they be in district, in outside programs, or on buses. There are students that require nursing on buses. So there's a small drop in the projected needs on the nursing, on the contractual side. So you're seeing a small decrease in the 2251 line. Psychologists and social workers, no real changes there. You're just looking at the year-to-year contractual changes. We did add 5 social workers this year. You're not seeing any change in the budget because those social workers are being paid for out of the federal grants. So they're not in the general fund. So you see the big $51 million number. I put this table in the presentation each year just to give you an idea of what does that look like? Where does $51 million come from? Obviously, special education is very staff dependent. There's 530 employees that work in that department, salaries totaling $34 million. We have a variety of contractual services. We have the public and private placements, so that's either an outside placement in another public school, so we may have children that go to Three Village or to Smithtown, or we may send them to DDI. We budget about $4 million a year there. Our BOCES placements are almost $11.5 million for a variety of different BOCES programs. BOCES occupational education for those students that need OCED, nearly $1.5 million, and just some general supplies and materials for the department. But altogether, summing up to $51 million.
John, just quickly before you flip, before you had said that some of the nurses went under the health services, and you were talking about it dropped because some of those were one-to-one nurses for
Yeah,
kids.
we actually,
Just quickly,
Yeah.
why do some of those nurses for special ed students fall under the health services and some of them fall under these? Why aren't they all under the same?
the other line is specifically people we employ. So these are people we hire here in Sachem to work for us. So the last few years, we've hired 4 individual nurses, 4 RNs, who become employees of the district but are not part of the nursing union. They get individual contracts. These are our nursing agencies. So you'll have Christian Nursing, we used to use Biata. There's several different agencies that maybe the nurses are only needed for specific assignments. Maybe they're only needed on the bus. Maybe they're only needed to accompany the child to BOCES. Whatever the case is, those children on their IEP have the need for nursing support.
Mike has a question.
Yeah,
Yes.
John, so the biggest piece of that difference between 47,500,000 and 51,290 is in that BOCES placement services, that's $11 million?
Well, you got about $1.8 million in extra BOCES placements. You have about $220,000 in additional BOCES occupational education. And then you have $1.1 million worth of additional employees that were not initially budgeted in the 21-22 school year.
Okay,
So
but
That's where your leap comes from.
can you explain, what do you mean by students that transitioned into Sachem from BOCES placements? What
So you have a
that?
child that, say, lived in Sayville. The family moves to Sachem. The child lives in Sayville, is already going to a BOCES special ed program. When they come to Sachem, their IEP follows them. That placement is still their placement. Now, we may have a program here in Sachem that will work for that child, and during the CSE process, we can transition that child back to district. But until the CSE process is done, that child's placement stays at that BOCES.
How many of those did we have?
There was quite a number this year, enough that I had to move $600,000 mid-year.
So it's to the tune of several hundred?
Several hundred? No, maybe a dozen children.
Oh, it
The
does.
tuition's about $100,000 a child.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Rob?
John, when we send students to the occupational education section of BOCES, we pay a different rate for tuition for student services versus student services. And if so, we're paying a higher rate for special needs kids to attend occupational education programs?
Sorry. All right, so my question I apologize for that. Students that attend BOCES occupational education, do we have a different tuition rate for a student that does not need services versus a student that does need services? Or
If I'm not mistaken, and Ms. Hines might be able to help me on this, these children are, I think, mostly full-day programs for their OCC, which is different than, say, a general ed child going to a culinary program or a small engine repair program or whatever different type of program the child's going to. This OCC is different than gen ed OCC.
Okay. So this is specifically for students that are
Just
classified
for BOCES, just for special education students.
for career and tech ed.
Correct. Yeah.
So the question is, are we paying a higher rate than a student that would go, outside of special ed? In other words, BOCES may charge $16,000 for one student and $12,000 for another student. Are students that are paying, if they're paying a higher rate, are we getting additional services to justify that increase in tuition?
I'm not understanding the
Is
question.
every student that goes paying the same amount of money? When
Well,
we
on the-
send these,
For career and tech
I
ed.
think that's what he's asking.
On the career and tech side, for a gen ed student, the tuition's the same. It's $14,000.
But what about special ed students that may have different
Special
services that
edu-
need to be?
It's going to depend on what the specific services that they're going for.
Okay, but they're receiving those services. In other words, they're receiving special services to
Correct.
justify the increase in cost.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
And then just to finish up, we just have these three categories. The top one is federal programs. Under Ms. Hines' office is the grant office. That office oversees all of the grants. It also helps oversee our clubs. It oversees home teaching, things of that nature. The $140,000 year to year, there's almost no change there. That's just the clerical support in that office and the supplies and materials to run the department. 2270, special needs. You're seeing basically a very small decrease there. It's staying flat. This is where we budget for our E&L students and AIS, so academic intervention support services for math or reading for our children. Some of those costs are actually being paid by those federal grants again this year, so that section of the budget is remaining flat. There's no change there. And co-curricular, which is all of our club activities, is also basically staying flat, other than the slight increases in percentage of salary increase. So overall, this area of the budget actually has a modest decrease of about $11,000. If I jump to the next slide, I just always give a recap each year of what's included in clubs, because we all remember 5-6 years ago, we worked very hard to build clubs back and give children opportunities. We had lost a lot of our clubs. So at East and North now in the current year, we have about 50 clubs being paid for out of the general fund budget. We would budget for that same number of clubs next year. The middle schools have about 23 per building, and the 10 elementaries have about 6 per building. Some might have 5, some might have 7, but on average, they have about 6. And clubs are all the different student club activities, honor societies, any of the social, emotional, supplemental learning opportunities that are available to all students. And furthermore, on top of the clubs that you see in the general fund budget, we're able to run 46 additional clubs district-wide with support from those federal emergency grant funds. And we have those monies also earmarked for clubs next year, so we'll be able to support that. Unfortunately, once those federal monies are gone, we're going to have to scale back on those, but it also gives students an opportunity to try a club that maybe they couldn't. Maybe the student, likes or dislikes change, and different club opportunities are offered in the future. But it's really been a great tool in being able to add a lot of additional clubs for the students. This year alone, with those extra clubs, we're running 274 clubs. There's 7,100 students on the high school level on rosters. And again, just like athletics, one child might be in 2-3 clubs. And in middle school, there's 2,300 middle school students. Any questions here?
I have a.
Yes.
Flattery?
Mr. O'Keefe,
Yes.
so with the federal emergency grant funds, so that's from like the COVID relief money
Yep.
or, so when, again, that's going to be just so many years, they're not going to continue it?
It ends September of '23. One of the things that, our legislators ask us, what can they help us with? We'd really like it if they would treat these grants the same way they treated smart schools, where we have these, our allocation is our allocation. Don't make us burn it all in 2 years
Right.
for the sake of using it. Let us apportion it out over time and use it appropriately.
Right. Now, I know a lot of people say it's tied to like a mask mandate, like you only get the money if your school is wearing masks, and if we give it back, we wouldn't have to follow the mandates, you know?
Yeah, there's nothing, I mean, and actually, just transition to my next slide.
Okay.
The clicker doesn't want to behave. There we go. So this is just a brief overview. If you remember back in June, Ms. Hines put together a very comprehensive presentation. It's actually listed down here on the bottom of my slide. When this is up on our website tomorrow, if you go to this slide and you click on that underlined phrase there, it'll take you right to her presentation. There was a series of public workshops. We had Zoom meetings. We had surveys to the community. You know, they just don't give you the $22 million. Yes, there are rules involved. It is a grant. You know, so you have to meet certain guidelines. None of it has to do with masks or vaccinations. Okay, well, they're all right on the website, and you can Google either Carissa or Esser, and it's right on the website. It'll tell you exactly what's involved.
Guys, we have to get through this meeting.
Yep,
If
so-
we're going to entertain questions, we have plenty of cards, you know, by all
Yep.
means, you could address those concerns there. So
So,
please allow Mr. O'Keefe to continue.
yep, just as a reminder, we have $11.6 million worth of money from the Corona Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. The activities here in Sachem, because we did have to fill out a grant application. The application was approved, and these are the items that are already in motion. Ms. Hines has worked with all the elementary principals, as well as our facilities department. We've identified outdoor learning areas and play spaces where we'll be adding new equipment. So there'll be new outdoor play equipment. We're looking at outdoor secondary cafeteria spaces, as well as tables outside for elementary students. Obviously, the club opportunities we spoke about. She's added science lab kits, literacy training. You know, I could go on. Her presentation, it's on the website, has a lot more detail. Towards the bottom, you see you have the ESSER grant. It's another $10.5 million. That's specifically to address learning loss and to prepare for reopening. So that's where we didn't budget any of our monies this year for PPE or disinfecting chemicals and materials. This is where we're purchasing our MERV 13 filtration devices from. This is where we're funding our summer and our after school and our Saturday academic and enrichment programs. This is where we're paying for those 5 additional social workers. We have 2 additional principal aides at each of our 10 elementary schools. We have additional E&L staff, and this is where we're paying for the quarantine support education that we provide. So these grants are here for us. They're here for us through the end of, well, actually September of 2023, but it is an item that's out for discussion where we would like to see them extend the timeline. Any questions from the board at this time on this? No?
John, when you
Sure.
asked the elected officials to lift some of those, you know, obviously it seems like we could better utilize that money over a longer period of time. What is your reaction?
People hear you. I mean, it might be another great question that they asked during the legislative forum. You know, obviously the community can bring that together. It's worked very well for smart schools. You know, we got that $11 million and we've had the time to carefully spend it over the last several years. I believe they should afford us the same opportunity. This $22 million was earmarked for us. Obviously, we've got a plan. It's difficult to execute plans on this scale in that short a period of time. You know, anything that has to do with construction like these playgrounds, it can only happen in certain times of the year. Sourcing materials right now is still a major problem.
And
You
can't encumber that money out of it past the 20.
It has to be spent.
It has to be spent within the
Within the grant
allocate
window.
that money, even though you're not going to build that
Yeah.
playground until.
I mean,
24.
certain grants like title grants, we can roll over funds from year to year. Right now, the way this grant is written, we cannot roll that money over. So that would be one of the goals that we would like to see, that these grants have a life beyond September of 23. So again, just to wrap real quickly, we've explored the non-instructional area of the budget, the $159.55 million, Tonight, we looked at student activities and supports, another 70 million. So we've covered a large portion of the budget. The next presentation is on curriculum and instruction. As of right now, as I showed in the last presentation, our tax levy increase is scheduled as about 2.01%. That will likely change slightly, once we get our final building aid numbers on April 1st, as well as when we finalize our capital projects for next year. Like I said, our next presentation is on the 16th with curriculum and instruction. And then we have 2 additional discussions on the 9th and the 23rd. And a reminder that the budget vote and trustee election is on May 17th.
Any other questions for John? Thank you very much, Mr. O'Keefe.
Thank you.
So a couple more things for me, Mr.
Please.
Piccirillo, please. Thank you very much. UPK, I'm going to ask Ms. Trombetta to jump in here about universal pre-K. We have some decision points coming up very quickly. And one of those things we discussed was we may have only full-time pre-K next year. Would you go into that a little bit?
Yes, we're looking to run full-day classes next year only instead of the half-day program. That would be for approximately 348 students, depending on the availability of space within the elementary class schools and Seneca Middle School. This year, we had 314 full-day and 88 half-day students. We had a wait of about 75 requests for full-day that we weren't able to place based on space and the availability of funds. Next year, it is going to cost about $5,600 a student, and the state funding would be for $54,000, so the district will be picking up the additional funds for each student.
So again, based on the community, the demand, right, supply and demand, the community wants more full day. So we would
Yes.
offer more full day, and that would then consume the half-day rooms that we might use. So we will have full-day pre-K next year, and then we'll have a lottery based on
Yes,
full
we'll be
day.
Opening up that, everything will be up on the website at the end of the week. Hopefully, that is the goal. And we're also looking to put a playground at Seneca Middle School. So that way, if the full day was placed at Seneca, the students there would have playground equipment like all the other elementary schools.
Mr. Scavo has a question.
Just real quick.
It's sort of in the packet, and one of the things that came to my mind is that we're giving about $1.2 million in full-day UPK and about $600,000 half-day. By going all full day, are we losing that? Are we leaving that $600,000 on the table?
No, that $600,000 would roll into the full day.
Okay. So
We'd be
we're able to
utilizing all
utilize-
the funds we received. The only restriction is the new money couldn't be used for half day. It had to be used for full day. But
Okay.
there's no restrictions on the initial money that we received.
And the second question I have is that we learned that scope potentially is raising the cost per child $200, which Ms. O'Keefe said we may have to find within the budget. Does that violate any gift of public funds for utilization of that money, or is it money that could be charged out to the parents that are selected in the lottery?
Yeah, actually, if you accept is that working? Okay, yes. Yeah, if you accept the UPK money from the state and you run a program, if there is a cost over and above, which there is in most programs, the district is responsible. It's not something you can charge the parents for.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please, Ms.
Just-
Sabrina.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Because you've said it, we saw it. With the UPK, we had the issues this year of the elementary buildings, properly placing them, leaving MPR rooms open for in-school field trips, presentations, PTA events, things like that. We know that certain buildings, they did not have that opportunity this
Right.
year because there were filled buildings with UPK put into it that are we going to continually monitor so that each building has a location and then open classrooms that if we do have to break sections, that we have the
Yes.
ability to do so and not, trying not to add TEs and all those other kind of secondary things.
So I will be walking all the elementary buildings to look at the classrooms, the number of classrooms. I've already started to look at the enrollment for next year and look at how many classes are needed. Any schools that look like they might be close to breaking and are tight across the board, we'll be leaving an additional room, not the NPR room, an additional classroom open for just that situation. So we won't be in the same situation we were this year at Hiawatha. Hiawatha will definitely have an extra classroom open in addition to their NPR.
Sure. Thank you very much. Couple things for me to continue, please. It was raised here at a board meeting. I believe Mr. Scavo perhaps talked about looking for an opportunity where we might be able to add texting or text messaging as part of a communication system with our parents, and how we might find a program that would align with what we're doing. And I'm very happy to talk about our own people, Mr. Renda and Michael Lee Manuel, Sue Buckberg. We're able to work through a system we have in place already, School Messenger, and there is a texting service within that we can start to utilize. So it'll be no additional cost to our community, nothing new to learn. If anyone has their cell phone already in our e-portal, in our parent portal, that automatically will be working for them, where they would receive a opt-in text message at some point during next week. And they can answer that they want to opt in at that time to receive text messages from the community. If they don't want to, they're getting enough text messages already. They don't have to choose that option. But our staff and our parents will be able to have this opt-in option. If in fact they don't have a cell phone number in there, they can enter a cell phone into our portal, and we would add that there, and that would be just another way in which we can communicate. We've talked about and committed to communicating as much as we can with our school community, and that's one way that we can do that. We're happy to bring that forward, and that's going to be happening next week or so. The community will start to get text messages again from us with an opportunity to opt in, and I'll put this in writing out to our folks as well. Any questions on that? Thank you. And lastly, we do have better numbers in terms of positive COVID cases in our community and in our schools, much lower. Yesterday, we had 4 in total. Thank goodness. We are going certainly in the right direction. And to that end, we are talking with our community already, with our schools and our principals and our teachers about trying to get back to that normal place where we thought we could be earlier in the year. We're having performances. Last night, Linwood had their performance for their community, for the parents. Tonight, there's a couple performances as well that were made up that had been postponed. There's a performance tomorrow night as well, and we're looking forward to having parents and visitors and more folks back in our buildings as well. So definitely heading in the right direction with that. Wanted to mention that. So thank you. That's the end of my presentation tonight. Thank you.
Any questions? On to the
I
agenda.
did forget one
Yeah,
thing.
Please.
I apologize.
That's all right.
Our school facilities staff, 24 inches of snow Saturday, ended Saturday night. Monday morning, we were here open. We did have a delay. That was more about the roads and the communities and the hills and things like that than our staff and our schools. So I really I see Scott here tonight, who's had some incredible leadership over this time. I really want to thank him. And again, those guys work so hard for us, hour upon hour, and then go home and do their own driveways, right? And then for their own families and their neighbors, and then come back here to help us again. So just want to commend them publicly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On page 2 is letter E, approval of minutes for the January 19th, 2022 regular meeting. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Mr. Isernia. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 4 is visitors about agenda items. I don't believe anybody is on. Is there one? I'm sorry, there is. Right on the top. My fault. You will be given 3 minutes to speak. Number 3 is Isabella Ruggiero. No? Isabella Ruggiero? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see her get up. I apologize.
Hello, my name is Isabella Ruggiero, and I'm in the 6th grade at Samoset Middle School. I'm here tonight because I now need to fight for my own rights. This is our 3rd on normal school year. I miss seeing all my friends' faces and smiles. But COVID is a virus. It's not going to go away. So what are we going to spend the rest of our lives covering our faces, staying a distance from each other, and quarantining ourselves every time someone gets sick? I'm sick and tired of this. Me and my peers deserve more. What did we do to deserve this? If I'm next to my friend and we're both wearing our masks and she gets COVID, I'm quarantined. So what is the mask doing? Nothing. It's doing absolutely nothing. All the mask is giving me is terrible nosebleeds and pounding headaches. I should at least get the right to choose if I want to cover my face. The world that we live in right now stinks, but at least let us make the decision if we want to cover our faces. So please, don't make me wear a mask. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Rebecca Sanchez.
All right,
We're not going to have people
Yeah,
shout
yeah,
out
yeah,
from the
yeah.
audience, please.
There are going to be
Please.
people with a difference of opinion tonight. We do ask that everyone be respectful and just allow everyone to speak.
well, I came in just to thank you from the previous meeting when you guys talked about IDs and implementing using IDs as a safety measure. I know it's something simple and small, but it's actually useful because we already have the IDs. So I appreciate that that's a step forward. I want to say, like, growing up in the 90s, I wore my ID every day in school. I have to wear my ID every day at work. It seems like a very simple, easy thing to do. So thank you. And in light of how this meeting's going, whether you agree with it or not, there is a mask mandate right now, right? And we should enforce that in this building, correct?
Yeah. Keep going. You can keep going.
I believe the right place to fight for that is with the legislators, not here, because we have to follow that mandate. So that's it.
Thank you. There are many more people that wish to speak, and that's going to just be right at the end of the agenda. Number 5 on page 3 is business items, consent agenda A through B. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Scavo, seconded by Mrs. Pickowitz. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 6 is personnel, consent agenda A through R. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Mr. Scavo. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. I'm just waiting to see if you looked at me or not. I wasn't sure. If we flip to page 11, number 7 is personnel support staff, consent agenda A through I. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Isernia, seconded by Mr. Reynolds. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Please.
So, Mr. Hank, we just recognize you today. Mr. Hank is a security staff member here who was just promoted into a senior guard position. He's been with us for 16 or so years. We've watched him as he's helped in our buildings in the evenings, during the days, in a leadership guard position throughout the last year and a half. We'd like to congratulate you on your promotion, and we'll look forward to seeing you at our board meetings. Also joining us this evening is Mr. Jacobellis. He's sitting in the front row wearing blue, and he is coming to us as our new Director of Facilities 3. He has had 25 plus years in the facilities world as leadership roles in an assistant plant facilities or a maintenance crew leader, as a head custodian. He's had a lot of great opportunities. He came from a large pool of candidates that were interviewed to fill Mr. Miller's position, and we look forward to you hitting the ground here. Congratulations.
On the bottom of page 13 is number 8, contracts, consent agenda A through F. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Isernia, seconded by Mrs. Slattery. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. On the bottom of page 15 is a donation by the New York Jets Foundation in the amount of $10,000. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Mr. Isernia. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Yes,
Actually, a
thank you very
correction,
much.
the total donation is 20,000. It's 10,000 in cash to support the program plus 10,000 in supplies.
Yes, thank you. Number 10 is a budget transfer in the amount of $631,000. Can I please have a motion? Number 10, motion by Mr. Reynolds, seconded by Mr. Scavo. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Staying on page 16 is number 11, Committee on Special Education, Consent Agenda A through B. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Slattery, seconded by Mr. Baumann. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 12, letter A is a notice of public hearing. The formal public hearing on the annual budget proposal will be held on Wednesday, May 4th, 2022, in the Board of Education room within Samoset Administrative Annex at 7 p.m. Letter B is open voter registration. Please contact the district clerk, Mrs. Florio, for any information regarding voter registration. Can I have a motion and a second for letters C through E? Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Mr. Isernia. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 13 is monthly reports. Does anybody's committee have a monthly? Please, Mrs. Slattery.
Yes, the legislative committee met last week, and Candace Benelli sent out all the save the dates to all our elected officials. We're working on the invitations now. This is all for the legislative forum that Mr. O'Keefe mentioned before. We're inviting all our elected officials here, and it's going to be a community forum where we're going to get to ask them questions. It's something that we've done here in Sachem for over 15 years. It hasn't been done in the past couple of years, but some community members and some of us thought it would be great to bring it back. PTA is helping us. They're going to moderate the event. It's going to be shown on live stream so people that can't come can see it. And the community will have the opportunity to submit questions ahead of time. So even if you can't be here, your questions can get asked. And I think it's going to be a great event. So we're working on the invitations. Mr. Render is helping us set up a direct email, a Sachem email for the legislative committee, so we don't have to use our personal email. So everything will come from, Sachem Legislative Committee at sachem.edu. And I'm looking forward to a great event, and I hope we have a lot of community participation.
Thank you, Laura. Anyone else? Please.
We had a ninth period committee meeting, and basically all of our courses have been approved. You're looking into the curriculum writing and hiring, etc. Now we're looking at getting the information out to the community through PTA, through brochures, through videos, just so that every kind of level, elementary, middle school, high school, understands what is going to entail for them, what it's going to look like, and kind of really just visual, not just paper read, just really let them understand why we're doing this ninth period and the amount of opportunities that are going to be open because, and putting us in the category of other districts who have had the ninth periods for numerous years. So just we're at that next step of more moving forward with curriculum and getting out to the community the information about what the ninth period looked like for 6 through 12, and then the time changes for the elementary.
Thank you, Sabrina. Anyone else?
Sorry, I might not have said it. March 16th, which is a Wednesday, so we don't have a board meeting. 6 or 7 p.m. But more information will follow once we finalize the invitation. Then that'll go out and the flyers will be posted on social media. So we let everybody know.
Mark, do you have any update? Committee update? Yep.
Yeah, this is really not a committee update, especially then. A couple meetings ago, we were invited to the legislative forum at Longwood High School, and it's going to take place this Saturday.
There was some discussion of the board as to, we're going to have an entire room full of boards of education. We're going to have an entire room full of our elected officials that are going to be showing up and hearing the concerns of school boards across Suffolk County, particularly. We were chosen to actually ask a question at this forum, and there's two questions. When we went back and I listened to the audio, there's two questions that the board was interested in asking. We're really allowed one question. Question number one was, will we continue to get the universal pre-K aid? And we learned the answer to that question in the sense that, yeah, they're funding it again this year. Question two, okay, that the board agreed to, was a question about establishing a metric system, okay, some type of metrics so that we can actually look towards getting back to normalcy in our schools. Okay, and it seems that the first question was answered already by our state aid runs. So question number two, I put together a question, and I just want to run this by the Board of Education so that we're all on the same page. We were selected, I was told by Ms. Florio that we're going to be called on second to ask the question to our elected officials. So the question that came up, and I'll read this. This is the first time the board's seen it. I apologize, I just finalized it at 5 o'clock tonight. It goes on by saying that in the Sachem School District, we believe that the very best place for a child to learn is in a school with their teachers and fellow students. To that end, we have maintained policies to minimize disruptions from the in-school learning experience as best as possible, given the myriad of pandemic-related regulations now in place. However, our goal remains to return our students and staff, by extension, our engaged community, to pre-pandemic normalcy in the quickest manner possible, using safe science-based approach. However, this is not possible for us to implement given the lack of information sharing between the governor's office, state health officials, and the local school districts. There's been no sharing of exact science behind how these decisions are being made, nor has there been clear guidance provided from the state. Here comes the question. So our question is, what specific metrics and guidelines do we need to meet and achieve to safely transition back to normalcy for our school-age children, including the reduction and elimination of quarantines, universal masking, and social distancing as an example? Our community, our administration, our Board of Education, most importantly, our students deserve a clear answer and guidance so that we have something to work towards and something to look forward to. So it's the question that I'm proposing to ask our elected officials before we go out and we ask it, because it's going to be live, in front of thousands of probably board members and politicians. Is there any rewording or any changing to the question as it's listed? So we could finalize it and we could ask this question at that meeting.
No, Rob, I like it. I think it's straightforward, and it's something that we've been asking for and the community's been asking for, so I'm good.
Everybody's good with it?
Rob, I just have a question, and this might be more for Chris Venator, because part of this question is involving quarantining. A few weeks back, it's like 2 or 3 weeks, we received information, Chris had shared it with us, in regards to the CDC and the state DOH saying that we no longer had to quarantine, but it was going to be left up to our local DOH. And we were told, and we've been following that because that's what the local DOH, or at least the information that we received, said that we needed to continue to do contact tracing. There's been a quiet update on their website that says that it is recommended, but no longer required. So my question is, and I know that this is part of this question, and that's why I'm bringing it up, is if it's not required anymore, and that's part of our question, A, why are we doing it? And B, we don't need to ask it if it's not actually no longer a mandate. And I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but listen, we told from the beginning, because we don't want to close schools and we don't want to get in trouble by losing aid or anything like that. So we said we were going to follow, whatever requirements that we had. But this is no longer a requirement. So I don't know if Ingerman has sat down. I know that I sent it over. I just don't.
I know that the Suffolk County Department of Health has, as you said, indicated on its website that it is still continuing to recommend that school districts do contact tracing so that you could make.
Just let it, we know. Let him answer, please.
So it is a recommendation made by the Suffolk County Department of Health that school districts continue to do contact tracing so you can make informed decisions on whether or not kids should quarantine.
So my question is, that day this was in court about the masks, it was a recommendation from state ed that we continue to wear masks, but we said that we were going to follow the law, and the law said that day that we took the masks off. So to me, this is the same boat where it's no longer a law or a mandate or requirement or whatever we want to call it that we're following. but why aren't we just going along with, this is an update and we should be following updates as far as no longer being a requirement, please.
Chris, I'll address this to Chris Venator and the
Yeah.
group. I looked at the same thing and I saw what you're talking about. And again, now here's another example of government conflicting information, because when you look at that rule or whatever you want, the Suffolk County Department of Health requirement, it does say in there that a close contact uses the word must, quarantine for 5 days, right? And it defines a close contact, right? I don't know if you saw this, Chris. So they use the word must, that they must quarantine for 5 days, a close contact with a non-masked person, right? So then it says, and then it does go on to say, well, and we recommend the schools continue to
Guys, please.
Then it goes on to say that it does recommend schools continue to contact trace. But if the close contact must quarantine, if we don't tell them, how would they even know? So it's a conflicting piece of requirement.
Yeah, Chris, how do you manage to that, right? We can't manage to that.
No, what I'm saying, in other words, if the close contact must quarantine for 5 days, how would the close contact know they must quarantine if we don't tell them they were close contact to a positive case? That's what I don't understand. Yeah, but if the one,
Yeah. Guys, we have a ton of questions and we have a lawyer sitting here and we have board members with questions. So let's see if we can get some answers and then you guys, we're definitely not going to get answers if you're going to continue to call out.
So
I'll tell you what, you specifically, and I'm being very nice about this. You're disrupting the meeting. We're trying to get clear, concise, correct information out. And if you're going to call out, I'm just going to ask you to step outside and leave the meeting. Please. Let's see if at the end of this, we can get some clear information that we can all get on the same page.
So I guess my point, Chris, you're going to need to go back and get what exactly that means now, because I keep reading it again. I keep saying, well, this is two conflicting things. The close contact must quarantine, but if it's only recommended we contact trace, how does the close contact know they got to quarantine? So it's a problem. It's a conflict there. You know? So I would ask that we have Chris go back to Ingham and Smith and get in touch with Suffolk County Department of Health, figure out what we're really supposed to be doing.
I called Sabrina when this all happened, and I sat with her and I went through everything, Department of Health, CDC. There's a million different recommendations, things, whatever. Unless it's a mandate that we have to follow, I'm good with not following, quarantining and putting kids that aren't sick home. It's not. So although you'll all disagree with me because I worked for lawyers for 40 years, a mandate is a law. If we don't follow it, I know you all disagree. Just let me finish. If we don't follow it, we can risk losing our funding. At this point, I don't see anywhere, and I know you don't agree, and it's not the COVID relief funding, it's our state aid funding. And I know you don't agree, I know. But at this point, unless we're mandated to contact trace, when we stop contact tracing, first of all, I had COVID again in December. Nobody called me, nobody contact traced anybody. The first time I got COVID, the previous year, they contacted everybody I was even near, and called. They're not doing that anymore. So I think that at this point, with what is going on and the lack of any follow-up or any specific mandate, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree, if it's not a mandate, Mr. Venator, do we have to follow it?
Well, I think I agree with prior trustee who said that there is some conflicting dynamics here, so that we don't have to do contact tracing, but we're still required to quarantine. And how do we effectively do quarantine if you don't do some sort of contact tracing? So there's a inconsistency in that dynamic in terms of not having to do it, but you're supposed to quarantine. And how do you quarantine effectively if you don't do contact tracing? So I'll look further and we'll follow up on my end with the Department of Health to see if we can get some clarification.
Yeah, Chris, when can we expect a response back on that? Because not for the next meeting, right? Just prior to that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just the confusion I have is that, in my opinion, kids shouldn't be quarantined. If kids are wearing masks, the mandate says that the only kid that has to be quarantined is the one that tests positive for COVID. So in other words, we should be minimizing the amount of quarantines. Now I agree. If the mandate's coming from the commissioner, then we have to follow it. And she has that legal guidance to do that. But if we have conflicting information, I don't know so much that we have to follow it to the land of the law, and put kids out, because putting kids out is not good for education. It's not good it doesn't benefit them in any way, shape, or form. Looking in on a Chromebook, okay, is not the same as sitting in the classroom. So I would agree with Ms. Slattery that, we should maybe look at that more closely, and if we don't have to do it, then we should lift that and not do it.
Sabrina and then Mike, please.
We've asked for metrics how many times now? Beth Page just asked for metrics again. We are being given, like Laura said, we went to every single place, and every single place had a different piece of information. I consider myself an intelligent person. Everybody here is an intelligent person on this board. And there's no rhyme or reason as to why we're continuing based on the information from the different places we looked. So until we get proper metrics, we could do something, another school could be doing something. Nobody's on the same page. So when are we going to say, you know what, this is what we're going to do?
Mike?
I don't want to get into another situation that happened on the day that we were maskless, that, the 3 kids who came in without masks put out 27 kids, right? So those 3 kids, yes.
Hold on.
That is what happened. 3 of the kids that came in without masks that day ended up testing positive for COVID. And because they didn't have a mask on, anyone who came within 6 feet of them had to quarantine.
Guys, please let him finish.
It resulted in 27 quarantines. Chris, is that not what you told us?
Guys, please don't call. Just let us finish. I promise we'll get there.
I
Please.
On the day we were maskless, 3 students tested positive within the 48-hour period of being maskless in school. It resulted in 27 students being quarantined from that day.
Okay, so those 27 students, those parents had to arrange possibly home care. They had it all because we went maskless that one day. Okay,
guys, please,
I'm not saying because they got sick.
Please let him finish, please.
I'm not saying because they got sick. I'm just saying because the Suffolk County Department of Health rules required us to do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I think we need Chris Venator and Ingham and Smith and the legal end of things to tell us what exactly does the Suffolk County Department of Health want us to do. It's very conflicting right now, where you say you must quarantine the close contact, yet it doesn't say you have to do the contact tracing in order to effectuate that. So that's the answer we need.
Anyone else?
Dr. Belteri, from those 27 kids,
Guys,
did any
please.
of those 27 kids test positive? I don't know if you're allowed to answer that.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. I wouldn't be able to answer anyway, but I don't have an answer for that.
I'll tell you what. We were on the updates on committees. I'll tell you what. Here's what I think we should do. And this is just my opinion, so please bear with me. How about we stop contact tracing? And then when we get, if we get more information and we get clear, if this is the way that we get clear direction from the state or the county DOH, because they're not giving it, then we'll change and adjust from there. Why? I've asked for this. Hold on, please. I asked about this a week and a half ago, and I didn't get any information. Why? And it's not your fault, Chris. It's the government. Steve Ballone can sit up there and say he wants clear information, but he's the one that's not giving us information. So if we're not going to get it, then we have to start doing things only required of us, or it's going to be this big hole. I have COVID fatigue at this point. Like, I'm tired of talking about this because I coach these kids and they don't want any part of these masks. I walk around the high school, they want no part of it. So how about this? How about we just do it and stop talking about it? We're just going to do it. And again, I don't know where anybody else is, but we are sending healthy kids home, and it's disrupting the academic process. That's it. And I understand that we want to wait for legal opinion, but I asked and we're not getting information. We haven't gotten information in 2 years. And the only one day that we got it was last year when we went maskless for the 1 year, and we got a direct, clear communication from the state. saying, we're going to close your buildings if you don't put the masks on. If this is how we get information, we're going to have to start putting ourselves out there a little bit more, because asking doesn't do us anything. Jim,
Yeah, Mr.
sorry, I was
Superintendent,
pointing on this
Mr.
way.
Superintendent, I'd like you to weigh in on this. I mean, this is an important thing Alex just said, and I at least would like to know your opinion.
If the Department of Health is recommending that we do contact tracing still in our schools, and Mr. Venator is going to go back and find out why that conflicting information exists, I would ask that we wait until we get more information from that conflicting information as opposed to jumping in and doing it. So I would not recommend that we do that. Of course, the board will do as it sees fit, but I would not recommend that we do that.
Anyone else?
Well, yeah, to that
Vinny.
point, Chris, Mr.
Guys,
Venator,
please.
could we get that information tomorrow?
I will endeavor. I'm also at the mercy of the Department
Guys,
of Health
please.
returning our phone calls. So they don't always do that. Sometimes they won't talk to lawyers.
I get it.
I'm going to make a motion to stop contact tracing. Good. If we're just going to sit and we're not going to know what to do, then at least if it doesn't go, it doesn't go. But I'm making the motion after Rob can go. Second by Vinny.
Chris, the question is, if the Department of Health is not getting back to you, can we go to the Commissioner's office and get clarification on it?
We certainly can try. We can go to the Suffolk County Department of Health, the New York State Department of Health, Commissioner of Education. Yeah,
I mean,
we could try all those things.
There's conflicting information, to be honest with you. I would, there was an administrator once said to me, you know what, just do it and ask for forgiveness later, and the thing is, it always seemed to work for me. But if we're getting conflicting information, okay, we have to make decisions that are best for our children. Okay, and the decisions are that we're keeping more kids in school and putting them in front of teachers, not in front of Chromebooks at home. Okay, that seems to be the best way to go. But I certainly would like to hear, okay, if the Department of Health's not, getting back to you, and you go up to the Commissioner's office, I'd like some feedback as soon as possible. But with that said, like I said, just do it and ask for forgiveness, if that's the case. So,
Mike?
Rob, my concern though is that if a student does come in and he is positive or she's positive,
Please, guys,
and we send that one
please.
student home, and
I don't want to be the bad. I hate being the bad guy. I really do. I don't play that role well. I just let everyone talk, and then we'll kind of go from there.
do you not think it's incumbent on us to tell these families whose kids were in very close contact with this known positive case, hey, you need to start monitoring your kid?
But are we assuming that they're not already monitoring their kid?
Well,
do people not look in their kid's face every day?
As a parent, I would want to know if my kid was sitting next to a non-positive case.
He's certainly entitled to that opinion. It's everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
No, because that's the conflict. The conflict becomes,
guys, please.
That's the conflict I pointed out, because it says that the close direct contact must quarantine. That's just my opinion.
I hear you. Sabrina, what do you want to do?
Are we voting?
Yeah. Mike? Matthew?
I can't hear the vote.
Stop. Continue. Go ahead.
Continue.
Sorry. This wasn't for dramatics. I'm trying to think.
We could pass you. Jim?
Yeah, pass me.
Laura?
No contact tracing.
Vinny? Rob?
No contact tracing.
I think we should pause it until further notice.
Okay. I'm good too. We have 6. It's up to, you don't have to if you don't want to. It's up to you.
I want to get a pause, so I'll pause it too.
Good. So that's that.
That was shameful. I'm so sorry. That was shameful.
Anyone have any other updates on their committee?
Is everybody okay with that letter, that question?
Yeah.
If we could just take it off. I mean, it's up to you if you want to keep the contact tracing part in. That's the only reason. That's how this all started, by the way. That's
Contact tracing is not in there. All right, but the thing is, it ties into it.
okay.
So I had elimination
The
of
way it
quarantines,
is.
universal masking,
Well,
social
quarantine,
distance,
yeah.
social distance.
I talked about contact tracing because of quarantine. I tied that all in together.
Anything I'm missing? Anything I need to add to it? That's
Good.
time.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Good.
Hey, Alex, just an update. Budget
Please.
Advisory Committee, we've got a meeting tomorrow. We're going to go in depth with Mr. O'Keefe's presentation with Ron and the Budget Advisory Committee, and we'll update the board as appropriately.
To clarify.
Please, yes. Sorry, yes. Anyone else?
I'm going to just, Mr. Butel, Phil, you guys want to, thank you so much. You don't have to stay. Ryan,
Please,
Scott,
you guys
thank
worked all
so
day.
much.
You were
Community's
here
gonna
just
get
for
a
our
chance to-
update.
Yeah. Stay, come as you wish. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. The next portion of the agenda is on public comment that was not related to the agenda. Everyone will be afforded 3 minutes. I know that there are going to be conflicting opinions. I just ask that everyone please be respectful, and whatever choice that somebody makes to say, allow them that opinion and the 3 minutes. I believe this says Lynette Capetto. Is that a C? I apologize. Okay. Did you get the other one?
Fuzz on this is, I don't know what that means.
Hello, my name is Lynette. You said that already. I'm here tonight because, like so many parents, I've stayed silent, hoping and praying that things would change and get better, but they aren't. They're getting worse, and frankly, it's scary. I don't care if you're for masks, if you're against them, if you want the vaccine, if you don't. What I do care about is my freedom to choose what happens to my child and myself. We should all care about that. If the proposed mandates happen and become permanent, we are giving up our freedom. I want to be clear. I do not want children wearing masks anymore. I also do not want the school nurse administering any vaccine. What I do want is you, our elected officials, to stand up and fight for us and fight for what is right. So if that means that you have to stop taking federal COVID relief money or whatever, then do it. If these mandates happen, you will have mass amounts of parents pull their children from school and start homeschooling. Some will move out of state. The social and emotional effects that this is having on all of us is going to be catastrophic. I beg you, please stand up for what is right. This is our freedom we are fighting for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kristen Dukas.
Good evening, everyone. Last week, many people in our community sent the Board of Education emails requesting they hold an emergency meeting to discuss their thoughts and opinions on filing an amicus brief for the current lawsuit. We were told that the emergency meeting wouldn't be held due to lack of coordination from the majority of members. This left the community with a lot of unanswered questions. Where do each of you stand on this hot button topic? Who did not agree to a public dialogue, and why are those of you unwilling to be transparent? Because some of you won't do your job or go on the record, I will gladly do it for you right now. For those that are in this room or listening at home that cares to hear this, it needs to be known that Alex Piccirillo, Laura Slattery, and Sabrina Pickowitz agreed to the meeting and agreed with the judge's original ruling. Oh, okay. I'd also like to thank them, as they are always the only members that respond every single time that I email them. Vincent Reynolds, Rob Scavo, Sal Rawadawa, and Matthew Bowman responded only after repeated emails were sent to them. At that time, Mr. Bowman clarified to me that he was available for an emergency meeting and believes his personal opinion is somewhat irrelevant, as he stated. Mr. Scavo said he was open to a meeting but wasn't available at the time. He also stated he is in favor of removing masks in a safe and appropriate manner. Mr. Reynolds did not specify his stance on a meeting and stated that decisions made regarding public health policy and protocols are not a BOE responsibility, and yes, parents should have a choice. Ms. Wadawa also did not specify her thoughts regarding a meeting and feels that school boards should not be in a position of determining public health protocols for schools. Instead, it should be made by doctors and scientists in the DOH. Lastly, Jim Kiernan and Michael Isernia chose not to reply at all, effectively leaving us in the dark. It would appear from the responses I received that there was actually a majority that agreed to meet. But as to why you are unable to coordinate with each other remains questionable. The deadline to follow was extended until the following day. There is zero excuse to not take a few minutes out of your day to do the job you signed up for. In fact, the collective response that I heard was that the same 6 people never answered their emails regardless of the subject matter. If you're not able to handle something as simple as listening or engaging with the people you serve, then you will be removed at the first opportunity to do so. Parents should not have to jump through a million hoops just to get a board member's opinion on any subject matter. Now, I also noticed a couple of your responses were about public health when I, in fact, did not ask your views on public health. If you had actually read the lawsuit, then you would have known the argument solely focuses on the Constitution and the lawmaking process. These are 2 things that are written in black and white and cannot be construed by personal opinion. We all watch Schoolhouse Rock. We know how a bill gets passed to become a law. It is also important for everyone to understand that this case does not contain any argument on efficacy of masks or science or data. It has no place in the matter. That was 3 minutes. Thank you very much. I just need to finish up 1 second. As we speak, our governor has a plan for this month to push even more rules through the back door by way of the Department of Health. This eliminates anyone's voices from being heard and is no longer a democracy. What do we have a legislature for then? The authority to impose the law lies with the Assembly and the Senate, not an appointed commissioner. If you think it's acceptable for the government to tell you what to do, how and when to do it, that's fine, but you should know you're living in the wrong country. If you are anti-choice, that's also your prerogative, but at least have the decency to let everyone know. Otherwise, you'll continue to lose a lot of respect.
Kristen, I just have to ask you to wrap up. I'm sorry.
Okay. You don't always need to do what's popular, but you need to do what's right because you all took an oath to uphold the Constitution. And last week, a Supreme Court judge ruled that all the mandates in New York are, in fact, unconstitutional. 6 out of 9 people on this board turned their back on us. I hope everyone listening makes a mental note of the names so they can make an informed decision at election time in May.
Thank you. Alicia La Dolce.
I'd prefer not to sit. I came to you last month on the ridiculousness and idiocracy of snack by row. I stood here. Can't hear me. I'll sit for you guys. Okay.
Can you just start again? I didn't hear what you just said. I apologize.
I came to you all last month on the ridiculousness and idiocracy of snack by row.
Oh, snack by row.
Snack by row. Yeah. I didn't sleep for 4 days over it. Snack by row. You didn't read it? Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. I stood here alone. Tonight I stand here with, I don't know, 80 friends and some outside. This has to end. No mask, no nothing. Let me tell you a story about what happened with my child in school last week. I send my child to school every day wearing a ridiculous mask. My child is stripped of her mask, given another one to wear, and at the end of the day, she is given her mask back and told not to tell me. What do you think of that? No, at the end of the 3 minutes, you'll tell me? Okay. So I want to know, is this what we pay everybody to do, is to teach our children to lie to us? Because my husband and I firmly explain the importance of honesty and integrity to our 6-year-old.
Sorry. If we could just let her talk. It's very, you can hear just a lot of chatter in the back as she's speaking.
I want to know why educators, so-called educators, are teaching our children to lie to us. Why? What is it for? Can anybody answer me that? I need to know. And another thing that I want to mention is I never planned on being a parent. And when I found out I would be, I was going to be the cool mom. Despite my conservative SUV, right? I was going to be a lot of fun. I was never going to be a pain in the ass. But here I am complaining all the time to stand up for my child, and that none of you are doing. I'm worried about putting a target on her back in school, when the truth is, you all should have the targets on your backs. You work for her, you work for me, you work for their kids, and you work for them. And none of you are doing anything about it. None of you. I am tired of doing this. I'm tired of it. My 6-year-old is tired of it. And the mask I send her in is a mask she will goddamn wear. That is it. And any educator who decides to teach my child to lie to me, that's not an educator. That's a coward and a loser, and nobody who should be on the payroll trying to teach our children. I'm done with it. And please let somebody try to vaccinate my child without my consent. Oh, wait, I wanted to know why it's okay for them to lie to us. I'm going to need some explanation on that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask that you reach out to me or your school principal. No one should lie
did.
to your child.
I
or
did.
your
I reached out to
Okay.
Dr.
And
Desmond.
did you get an answer?
And he is a phenomenal person. I really feel bad for him because he's stuck doing the dirty work of all these people who don't answer emails and don't do anything to support our children in the right way and fight for them. I feel really bad for him because his hands are tied. He really is. It's not right anymore. I have to constantly call and complain. I think they call them Karens. I don't want to be a Karen. I really don't. I'm Alicia. I am Alicia Messina La Dolce. I'm not Karen. I'm so tired of this. I'm over it. I want to know why anybody thinks it's acceptable. And also, as I stated at the last meeting, I'm still paying twice a week for my daughter to go to therapy after being traumatized by a TA over a mask. Over a mask. Who of you is going to give me the $60 twice a week? You could Venmo me. I'm good with that. I got Cash App.
Valerie Moscato.
Hello, everyone.
Please, in the back, guys, please.
My name is Valerie Moscato. So here we are again, and it seems that no matter how many times we're up here, parents come up here, voice their concerns. Okay, because I'm really pissed off of everything I've been just hearing, so I'm a little like taken back. So can you stop my time real quick?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. So time and time again, parents come up here, voice their concerns with these illegal and unconstitutional mask mandates. It's falling onto deaf ears. Why is that? You all have to know that this tyrant, unelected governor of ours is abusing her power. I have to believe that you know this. You know this. Everything we have been told about COVID is a lie. Everything, they've gotten everything wrong. We were told 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and it's been over 2 years now. We were told to wear masks, and it would protect us. We were told to social distance, stay at home, and that lockdowns would reduce the death rate and the spread of COVID. All lies. We knew that masks never worked, and the CDC just confirmed that. So for 2 years, our kids have been muzzled, and they're still being muzzled. A study at Johns Hopkins University just concluded that the lockdowns had little to no public health effects, while they have imposed enormous economic and social costs, and that lockdown policies are ill-founded and should be rejected as a pandemic policy. Everything is coming to light, but you still want to mask up our kids, not even to make it optional. Why? I mean, it's very easy to do. Just say optional. I don't care if somebody wants to put 5 masks on their kids. Let them do it. It's their choice. We're not getting the choices. We're being locked out. We're getting nothing. Everything is being stripped from us. And we all know it's about the money. Money is a root cause of all evils when you're using it in the wrong way, when other people are suffering. And those people happen to be the students of Sachem. All of you were elected by us, as everybody has been saying. You were put in those seats. You're supposed to look out for the best interests of our kids. Our kids come first. You're supposed to recognize when there's abuse of power being rained down on our children, and you're supposed to fight for them. But the only people that fight are us, the parents. We fight for our kids. And now I'm hearing you want to have kids wear N95 masks, which I hope that is an unfounded rumor, because that is like absolutely crazy. Those masks were not meant for kids. They're not meant to wear all day long. You can't breathe in them. COVID is not a death sentence for these kids. Remember, it's more than a 99% recovery rate. So many kids have had it already, along with the rest of us. Does natural immunity mean anything to you guys? If not, then maybe you all need a refresher course in science, because right now science is not being followed. I also heard that nurses will be able to administer the vaccine without our consent. Or that, at least that, I think that's the goal of our governor. Let me ask you this. How do you think that's going to turn out if you try to do that in our schools? I will tell you, it's not going to turn out good.
That was 3 minutes. Thank you.
1 second. No one will touch my kid. This insanity needs to stop. If you try to pull this crap in our schools, you will have so many parents, and I need thousands, including myself, pull their kids out. Or do you even care about that? Does any of this seem very fair or right to you? Forcing a vaccine that has been proven not to work. This is not keeping people safe. It's about control. We all know it, and we're done. It seems that this administration and this governor wants to keep the charade going
Ms.
forever,
Meadows, if
and
you
we're
could
just
please wrap
following the
up.
science.
Thank you.
You know, thank you very much. Can I say one last thing here? God is watching all of you poison our youth in means of self-interest, and this will not go unanswered.
Thank you. Before I call the next person, I just like to remind everybody, and I know that everybody wrote down something, but I would like everyone to keep to the 3 minutes. We'll ask you just to wrap up quickly and finish the last sentence and kind of go from there. Maria Camino? I think it's the cushion on the top of the mic.
Okay. We are all here again today fighting for our children's rights and freedoms and health. I'm not going to.
We're just going to put it on real fast, just so there's some
Oh,
feedback on
okay.
our end.
I am not going to present facts regarding the damage and ineffectiveness of masks and vaccines because I know you all know the facts and choose to ignore them. Anyone with even a tiny bit of common sense and intelligence can figure out the government's tyrannical tactics that they impose on our children have nothing to do with safety and everything to do with control. The government's only goal is to indoctrinate and inject poison in the veins of our children. They are succeeding in an alarming speed. It's not a difficult task when there are so many sheep pushing their agenda. Our children's mental and physical health are being destroyed, and you are all guilty of helping the government push mandates, vaccines, and nonsensical, harmful agendas, all in the name of money. Those that should be protecting our children are instead mentally beating them down and shaping them into good little boys and girls that obey without question or choice, then throwing them to the wolves. I am appalled. Say what you want and deny all you want, but I and all the parents fighting against this atrocity see clearly what is important to you, and it is not our children. The government and their soldiers, which are the Board of Ed, the resident of the United States, Democratic leftist leaders have underestimated parents' determination, power, and will to keep our children safe and healthy. There is no obstacle we will not take on to accomplish this goal. Our children will not be guinea pigs. They will not be abused and silenced. They will not comply. We will pull our children out if this tyranny does not stop. Now, I know you don't care because illegals flooding this country will replace our children, so no loss to you. You still get a salary. The same illegals that are sponsored by Sleepy Joe Biden, the resident of the United States, to illegally cross and flood our borders, they are not required to get vaxxed, vetted, or follow any laws. Many have vicious criminal backgrounds and are vicious criminals. And the government is trying to make me believe that this insanity is all in the name of safety. My freedoms, my children, and bodily autonomy were given to me by God, not government, and protected by the Constitution. I plan on exercising and keeping these rights. I am not giving up. I will not give in. I will continue to fight to the end for my children's rights, freedoms, and liberty.
Thank you. freezing in here. God. Cheryl DiPietro. Oh, sorry. I know. You do the same thing every time. I get confused every time you look over.
Good evening. Could you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is a different subject. I was taking a look at the New York State Education Department website, and I came upon something that concerns me. The New York State Department of Education has created a program and a curriculum called WTOS, Welcome to Our Schools. This program is refugee focused and has been put in place to ease transition for a refugee child. I have a few questions for the board. Question one is Sachem participating in this program or any program like it? And if so, what additional positions are being added to accommodate the students? I know this isn't a back and forth, so I'm going to ask my second question. Was Sachem given an incentive by the state to participate in this program or programs like it? And if so, what is it? Question number 3, being that most refugees only have some, if any, background knowledge, how is vaccination and health status determined? I understand that this isn't a conversation like I just said, but I do need to know who I could contact with these questions because I would like an answer to them.
Mrs. DiPietro, if I'll step out with you real fast. We'll get your contact information. I wrote down your questions, and I will have somebody contact you directly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Meredith Volpe.
Before we start my 3 minutes, I just wanted to ask you if we could have a moment of silence for one of our Sachem parents who passed away just after the holidays. Kelly Wallstrom was a dedicated advocate for our kids and a huge asset to the PTAs of Hiawatha, Grundy, Seneca, and North. Okay, I'm here to speak tonight to our board members, not about the issue of to mask or not to mask. That's not the question. I'm not asking any of you to make a medical determination about masks working or not. The CDC and Dr. Fauci already did that publicly for us on January 9th when they said cloth masks don't work. What I'm here to speak of is the oath that you took. I took that oath in July of 2018. I raised my hand to God just like you guys did and took that oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and New York. Please think back to when each of you took that oath. It was not pomp and circumstance. It's an oath. It is to be taken seriously. How can any of you sit there and say that you take that oath seriously, yet you wouldn't even take the time to have a meeting the other day to discuss this? I've heard many excuses. I've heard no solutions. I've heard trepidation about loss of funds. I want anyone to show me legally how enforcing something that is unconstitutional when you took an oath to uphold the Constitution will allow us to lose funding. You do realize if we allow our governor to mandate the vaccination in the same unconstitutional way that she's doing with these masks, you will lose more than money. You will lose many students and many residents, resulting in a large fiscal loss for many years to come. So while it's not your job to decide what is medically right for me or my child, or to say, let's follow the science or what the science even says, it is your job to uphold the oath that you took to the Constitution of New York State and the United States. New York State Education Department and DOH are not part of the lawmaking branch of our government. They have not been elected by the voting public to make our laws. You were elected by the voting public to uphold your oath to the U.S. and the New York Constitutions. I'm sure if you need to brush up on the Constitution and the 3 branches of government, we can find some pretty awesome social studies teachers to help you out.
Thank you. I apologize if I say this wrong. Gina Bonanate?
Hi, everyone.
Did I say it right?
Buona day.
Buonanotte.
Close enough.
I didn't give it the accent.
I didn't realize this chair has wheels on it. Almost rolled away. Oop, sorry. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I've been an RN for 14 years, working in both the ER and the ICU. And for the first year of the pandemic, I worked in the COVID ICU for the entire year. Let me remind you something. PPE, it stands for personal protective equipment, not public protective equipment. The only mask that would be recommended to work for COVID, if we were going to give them out, would be a P100 mask. And that's that rubber thing that looks like a big respirator. And even those masks only filter one way, to protect the person wearing them, not the opposite way. Because if it did, then no one would be able to breathe at all while wearing them. It filters out 99.9% of particles in the air. So if the government was really serious about public health, they'd be handing those out to every person to wear them. But obviously that would never happen because people would rebel and we wouldn't have a mask mandate. And then they'd have no power over us to push their agenda further. Children being maskless around other masked children pose no health risk to them whatsoever. And we see this every single day when they're out in the public playing with each other, and they're at play dates and after school activities, maskless. Then they go to school and they're made to pretend theater that they're scared of each other, sitting rows apart from each other, eating by rows, some kids eating off the floor, okay, because they have to be certain distance apart, my neighbor's child. This is insanity. We are keeping our kids here following these rules just to give them some sort of normalcy. Absolutely not. This is not normal whatsoever. This is a disgusting power grab by unelected officials, our governor. But what's more disgusting is the fact that I haven't seen one of you stand up and ask questions. Not one of you have come and fight for our children. Not one of you. And I want to take a minute to tell you some disturbing things I found out last week about my daughter in particular, that she went to school the day after the mask mandate was lifted and had her mask off and was threatened to go to the principal's office. She's 8 years old for taking an unpermitted mask break. I'm going to tell you right now, children should not ask to breathe. They do not need permission. Enough is enough. They're not misbehaving. They're not being insubordinate. They merely want to breathe freely, which is their God-given right, not something that requires punishment or permission from anyone. This is not time for us to stay here and lay low and not ask questions and not fight for our freedom. We are losing our freedoms at a rapid rate. This is our time to stand up and fight. And if we don't fight now, we will lose them forever. And that goes for you guys too. This is not just about children. This is about all of us. Do something. I beg of you. We will be pulling our kids from the school if this goes any further. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Trees. Donna, I apologize if you were going to speak about something on the agenda. It's checked on that one, but you didn't.
That's okay.
Okay.
I am a healthcare provider. I've been in healthcare for 30 years. I see, examine, and treat patients on a regular basis. The last 2 years is something I've never seen before in my entire life. For the first time, I am embarrassed to say I'm a healthcare worker for what the government has allowed, for my hands being tied, for watching my patients die because I can't give them what they need. My son wrestles to ask somebody to be in school for 8 hours with their mouth covered and then have to go to practice and work at an intensity that none of us have ever had to work at for an additional 3 hours with a mask is just so unrealistic. To have your child come home and cry that he can't breathe and you're his help. You're the last person he has to go to help him, and you have nothing that you can do or say to him is just so unrealistic. A mask works for 4 hours. Anything over that, you are burrowing bacteria. And these children are breathing that bacteria in their lungs because their mask is not allowing them to exhale. Not only that, you're breathing in carbon dioxide for 8 hours of school and additional 4 hours at a high intensity in a sport. And if you look up side effects for CO2, it's just not fair to the kids. It's not fair to the kids. My son could be sitting next to someone with TB who went to Africa on a spring break. He could be sitting next to someone who has methicillin-resistant or Staph aureus, and nobody knows that. Someone could have Hep B or C coming from another country. Someone could have HIV. We've never done this to our kids before. This is a virus. And we've seen in December that we've all gotten it, whether you're vaccinated or not, and most people survived. It's so unfair to put our children through this. And the kids that are in sports, it's just inhumane. And for my child, for the first time, I'm here because he needs me to be his advocate. And if my kid drops dead on that mat, what are you going to say? I'm sorry? Or make a rule and change it then? We're supposed to advocate before the problem happens. So today, under the Freedom of Information Act, the Sunshine Act, and the New York Freedom Act, I'm asking both the Board of Education president and the superintendent to give me and forward copies of the oath of office that you took and your surety bonds. I have a formal request of everything in this letter that legally you have to submit to me. The Suffolk County Sheriff's Department has been notified, and if I am not submitted that information, they legally have to support the Constitution and offer you a summons. And for my son, I will do this.
Mrs. Trees, if you can hand that right to Mrs. Florio. Is your contact information on there?
Yes.
Okay. Ashley Clark.
Hi, my name is Ashley Clark, and I am a new Sachem mom this year. My husband, David, is a Sachem graduate, and we have a little girl who started pre-K this past September. This district has always been one at which students, parents, and faculty felt proud to be a part of. Sachem has always encouraged the students to be the best they can be, stand up for their beliefs, and believed in Matthew Desi DeStefano's "We Get To" philosophy, and has continued to encourage all with his same passion even after his unfortunate passing. Lately, it does not feel like the same Sachem, and instead just festering frustration and disappointment throughout the community. With that said, I would still like to express my gratitude for those who stepped up and did give us mass choice last week. But if you gave us that one day, why can't you give us all the days? My daughter asks me daily why she has to wear a mask to school. On January 25th, when I told my daughter she didn't have to wear a mask, she jumped out of bed, ran downstairs, grabbed her little American flag from her Veterans Day celebration and waved it furiously. Again, she's 5, and she associated going to school without a mask with freedom. We keep saying these young kids don't know what's going on, but I promise you they do. My daughter certainly does. She is just as confused as I am why she has to wear a mask to school, but not around the same children, whether it be at dance class, swim class, birthday parties, or play dates. We as parents are not asking for anything more than choice. Each one of us deserves that choice to decide how we want to protect our own children and families. Those of us who deem masks more harmful than good shouldn't have to force their child to wear one. Those who believe that masks stop the spread can encourage their own child to. After all, as long as those children have their masks on, what does it really matter what the others are doing? Can you imagine if the roles were reversed and masks weren't allowed in school? How unfair would that be to those parents who just wanted to protect their child in their own way? Please fight alongside of us and put our children first. This is and never has been about their safety. It's about money and control trickling down to our innocent babies. Give us the choice giving us the choice is the right and just and excuse me, giving us the choice is the right and just thing to do, and we're all just wondering why we don't get to. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanna Chavez.
Yes,
Please.
hi, my name is Joanna Chavez. I have two kids. One is 6 years old. The other one is 4, I'm sorry. And they're like in two different worlds. And it's not fair for my kid. My 4-year-old doesn't understand, never had the option of having a childhood like my 8-year-old girl had. So I'm begging you guys to please be on our part. We pay our taxes. We want freedom. We want to make the choice for our kids. Please help us out.
Thank you. Lori Hoffman. That was the one before.
As of today, only 10 states are requiring masks in schools. 40 other states are living their lives without masks. 40 other states with their kids having their school events, their dances, their concerts, their shows, living a normal childhood. And then there are our children, sitting as prisoners in their desks, separated from each other, not allowed to play together, not allowed to share their things, not allowed to take their masks down, missing out on school event after school event. Our children are being used as pawns for a political agenda. Tell me that it's only about health when there are 40 other states living through the same exact thing that we are, except they're doing it without mask mandates. You know what the 10 states have in common that have the mask mandates? They're all Democratic. When are schools going to start to stand up for our children? Masks one day, no mask the next day, mask again the day after that, jerking the kids around back and forth like it's okay. And here we are just continuing to go along with it. I've seen some districts stand up and say enough is enough, but Sachem wasn't on that list. Why not? When is it going to be enough for Sachem to say no more? Is it masks through the end of February, or through the end of March, or through the end of this school year? What about when the numbers start going back up in the fall? When is it going to end? And the answer is never if the schools continue to allow it.
I apologize. I believe it's Eleanor Lalima.
Hi.
Please.
I want to start out saying that I'm an immune suppressed patient, and I worry about myself. I don't worry about what's going on around me, who's doing what around them. I'm asking you to please give parents the choice to remove the mask from their children. It's been 2 years. 2 years we've been going through this. We want choice. We want our kids to be maskless. Please listen to us. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal. It's not safe for them. Please, just please remove the masks. That's all I ask. Please.
Thank you. Cindy DeSimone.
Hello. Hi, I was here a couple of months ago, and I asked for homework help for elementary school children. Going over the budget today, it's over $200 million that I heard of just for extracurricular activities, $200 million. We were talking about middle school tennis and busing children from one area to another. When this is a board of education, and this is a public school, public education, and there are elementary school children struggling daily, and I know no matter what you feel about masks, one way or the other, all of us have probably had a child struggling with homework. So I'm going to ask again for for some program to be instituted in children's elementary schools to have extra help at their school for homework or just extra help, period. I think it's, and with the millions and millions and millions of dollars that we have, to not focus on education and early education and supporting children's actual education is just ludicrous. It's ludicrous. There's no reason parents should have to struggle for an hour or two. And look, I love my kids' teachers. And one of my children is better at homework than the other. But there should be options. There should be options for these small children who are struggling to have professional help if they need it. On a second point, and I'd like some actual clarification on that. I really think that something could be done for these young kids with extra help if they need it. There's always extra help in the middle school. There's extra help in the high schools. It's a foundational age. Please help them if they need this extra help. I know that there's always accountability. There's accountability for all students. All of them are held to a standard, right? And all these children have to follow certain rules, right? The rules are what the rules are. If you do not follow the rules, there are always consequences. Is there not? Is there not? There are consequences. If there is a rule or there is a law, that law has to be followed.
Just let her speak, please, Mrs. DeSimone. Go ahead.
If you agree with the law or not as a student, if you break the law, you are held accountable, are you not? So if you're held accountable for breaking the law, I'm looking at this entire Board of Education, and I see you, Mr. Piccarello, with your mask under your nose the entire time. The entire time.
Stop. She's
Now-
talking to me. I could take it. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Now, there were at-home COVID tests sent out, thankfully, from the school. How are those COVID tests taken? They're taken by a nasal swab because COVID is found in the nasal cavity.
That was your 3 minutes. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and they went over, so I reclaim my time.
I'll just ask you to wrap up like I asked everybody
Okay,
else.
I'm going to just wrap
Yep,
it up.
Please.
You are being very disrespectful, sir. You are being very disrespectful of the rule of law. You are a leader, and you are
Stop.
not following the regulations, yet you encourage and you ask our children to do that. So shame on you, and shame on all of you for not calling him on it.
Okay.
Thank you
you.
for your time.
Stop, guys. Let her sit. The next person's coming up. Teresa Ponce, please. Yeah. Please let her speak.
I don't need 3 minutes. I'll be quick, but you'll probably end up on Sachem Moms because she was also sitting back there taking your picture
doesn't
without
matter.
your mask on. So
It doesn't matter. I watched the Suffolk County Legislature the other day. None of them are wearing masks. Steve Ballone himself walked in there with no mask on. He has said multiple times he's not enforcing a mask mandate. So that's what it is. Let her speak, please. You can take my picture. I'll send you a picture if you want it. Please. Stop. We cannot curse at each other. Let
Guys,
them speak.
I'm gonna make this really, really
Teresa, just
clear.
wait 1 second.
Okay, and I don't
Stop this
care
time.
whether you agree with me or not agree with me. This is what happened in Smithtown. Okay, and Smithtown meetings are all virtual because community members can't get together and at least be respectful to each other. Okay, and if we're gonna do that, I'll make the motion, and all meetings moving forward will be all virtual. Not a problem. You could send your comments in to the
Stop.
district clerk. Okay, and she could read the questions and answers, the comments to us. Okay, because it's not right. We sat up here and we got beaten up. Okay, and the first time a person comes in here and goes after Mr. Piccarello, everybody has a problem with it. Let's be civil. Let's be respectful. Let's get through this meeting. And the comments that we're not fighting for kids, okay, is wrong because we're going to spend half of it's going to spend 4 hours on our Saturday away from our children, okay, at a legislative meeting with a speech I just wrote. There's a question that I just wrote, okay. Now we we are advocating for no masks. We're advocating for our kids. I'm a school teacher. I'm in a mask 8 hours a day. I know what it's like, okay, to be in a mask. Okay, we're advocating, okay? But to sit here and say we're doing nothing, it makes me want to crumple this up and throw it out. We're going to spend 4 hours of our time fighting with our legislators. You know, you have a choice, okay? Your choice is we need to get rid of the governor. That's what we need to do. We need to put somebody there that's going to do the right thing for our kids. But you yelling at us, okay, and making us feel like, you know, we're worthless and we're not fighting for your kids is the wrong thing. All right? Be respectful, please. Be courteous to each other. All right? And we're going out and we're fighting for kids. We are. Whether you believe it or not, well, we are. We are.
All right, let Mrs. Ponce speak.
Listen, we spend hours, okay, talking to legislators. You can call, you know, some of our local officials, okay, and they'll tell you that we're on the phone with them all the time. But it's outside of our control. Some of the things you're asking for us to do, we can't do. The last time we did this, we got an email, a phone call, okay, from the governor's office saying, if the masks are not back on tomorrow, all 11,900 of your kids, all remote tomorrow, effective immediately. All right? They did it, okay? So if you want us to take the masks off of kids, we'll take them off the kids, but be prepared to have 12,000 kids learning remotely tomorrow. All right? We are going to fight for your kids. I do stand up for a lot of things, sir. I stand up for a lot of things. But please, let's be civil. Let's be respectful. Because I'm telling you right now, next time I see two people out in the audience fighting, I'm going to make a motion to go virtual. And all of our meetings will be virtual from this point.
Mrs. Ponce, no, we're going to just stay on here. Mrs. Ponce's turn, please.
I'm sorry.
Can you wait? Can you wait till the end of the night? We can talk all you want right at the end of the meeting. I promise. Mrs. Ponce, please.
It's okay. I'm not going to talk about masks. I think they're stupid. You all know we all think they're stupid. We don't need to talk about them anymore. They're idiotic and it's time for them to go, but that's not why I'm here. I wanted to publicly address that every single person on this board had an obligation to the community to accept that meeting regarding the amicus brief, not just three of you. Regardless of your position on masks, you were appointed to represent every person in this community, and it was cowardly and careless to disregard that duty. You just said you spent 4 hours on a Saturday, Mr. Scavo. You said that you make time for everything. Your time should have been used to address. Wait, I have 3 minutes. I'm sorry. I will, but I do want to finish. I want to thank the three of you that did make yourselves available to take that meeting and at least attempt to do the right thing for the large portion of the parents and children in this community that are done waiting. Copy and pasting email responses that were sent to concerned parents further proves that some of you just cannot be bothered to even hear our concerns because you're not reading them if you're just copy and pasting. Some of you never respond at all, and I send emails so I know who does and who doesn't. If you're only here to warm a seat, then step down and allow the people that are willing to fight fill your seats. I know to some degree all of your hands are tied, all of our hands are tied, and I am not without understanding. But that's not an excuse for doing nothing. Use your positions as the voice of our district and fight for every single one of them every day in every way until the nonsense ends. No excuses. Whether your hands are tied or not, whether you read the emails or you don't, we are entitled to responses from you. It doesn't matter what your standpoint is. It doesn't matter if you agree with mine or you don't. You're here to respond to us. And because we don't know those things, because we don't hear from you, specifically several of you, we don't know your take on it. So then we come here and we're frustrated. And yes, it gets loud and it gets crazy and you want to tame everybody, but you leave us no choice when we have to come here for an answer because nobody responds to us. Sorry. Yes, please.
Right. To answer your question, okay, 5 did agree to meet, okay? 5 board members did agree to meet, okay? I found out about the amicus brief at 11:15 from Miss Slattery, and it was due 12 o'clock. We had to meet by 12. I'm a teacher. I work with kids in 3-hour blocks. I'm not permitted to pick up my phone, and I'm not permitted to get on my phone in front of
Did they not extend that, though? They did
I-
make an extension.
They did extend
not?
it to the next day,
Okay.
okay? They did extend it to the next day, okay? An email went out saying, look, are we having this meeting or not? Okay, we're doing it. It was supposedly extended to 5 o'clock. Okay, I conferred with Mr. Piccirillo, and he told me no. He spoke to the lawyer. It had to be done by 12 p.m. 12 p.m. Okay, so there are members that were willing to meet and hear it and discuss it. So I stand by my position when I say I'm always, for the last 14 years, willing to roll up my sleeves and fight for the community. I've gone to Albany. I've fought in Albany. Okay, you can look at it on YouTube.
We need
Okay,
you now.
but
Now is when we need
we're
you,
doing
right
it, but
now.
we're fighting the fight.
Send an
What?
email.
All right.
Return an email.
We
and
had over
say,
200,
"We're working
250
on it."
emails, Ms.
Guys,
Potts.
I'll
hold on,
reply to your
Vin,
emails
let-
if the emails come in a respectful manner, because the disrespectful language that the emails came in at is not going to get the response you're looking for. I responded with my position on things, but the level of disrespect and the language you guys use in those emails, you're not going to get a response.
I don't curse at any of you and I don't disrespect you in a way that I think is disrespectful. When I use the word cowardly, that's what it is. That's what it is. If you don't respond and come forefront to the people who are disagreeing with you, it's cowardly.
Yeah.
It is cowardly. You owe us an explanation and we're just asking for one.
And
we don't hear from anybody.
And we gave you the
Several.
explanation.
Sorry.
We're actually going to have a board discussion on that later about how this board should communicate. And I've been asking for that for 7 months since I've been on the board.
Okay.
So hang tight.
Mrs. Potts, Mr. Baumann
Can
just wants
I
to go.
just want to say, I just want to
Guys,
clarify.
can you just
Can I just clarify something first? First of all, I don't answer every single email because a lot of times the emails are sent to the entire board, and you know we rely on the president to respond. Okay, but the emails that you're talking about this whole thing, I responded within 24 hours.
With a copy and pasted
That's
email
true.
that 100 other
No, that's
people got
true.
from you.
That's true. But to be honest with you, a lot of the emails from the public were copy and pasted. So, okay. So, but
Mine was not. And it's not
no,
my
okay.
first email. I've
But
sent
to be fair, I'm serious. To be fair, we got like 100 emails. That's a lot of emails. Hold on.
Where you're at.
No, hold on. My response was, I mean, if I retyped it 100 times, I felt it was an appropriate response. That's what I'm going to say. And the other thing I'm going to say is what I said in that email was true. I was probably the first person to tell President Piccirillo that I was available.
And I thank you.
Because he and I work in the same building. So I knew about it before anybody. And so, but many people in this crowd had said only 3 board members.
Okay, 4. So,
Well,
and I
I'm
thank
just
you.
saying, that's not true. And I know other board members were available. It was just, it was,
Which is why being transparent is important.
I
and
agree with
hearing
you.
from people is important because
No,
then we don't
I
know.
agree with you. I do.
We need more transparency. We don't get that. We don't.
Listen, and I'll piggyback with what Mr. Scavo said. I'm a teacher myself. I have the mask on all day. I'm with you. I want to get rid of these masks. I really do.
I
But
don't
we
necessarily
can't break.
doubt that any of you want to get rid of them. But you guys are the ones that are going to make
But
that
it's not
happen.
up to us, is what we're trying to tell you. And as soon as it is, I'm pretty sure this board is gonna do what you want. So be patient. I know. I'm sorry.
Caitlin McEnany. Ma'am, please. Caitlin, guys, we can't call out. Let Mrs. McEnany go, please.
I don't want to keep touching it.
I feel like what I wrote is kind of pointless now, but I'll just read it. All right, good evening. Thank you to the members of the board for being here, faculty and staff, and all the parents. Happy to see everybody come out. I first really want to thank you all for what you do. We appreciate it. We may yell at you, but I'm saying thank you tonight, especially for following the Supreme Court ruling and lifting the mask mandate and going optional, even if it was just for one day. So for that, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Having said that, I'm extremely disappointed in a few of the board members for not responding to our pleas to even take the meeting for the filing of the amicus brief in joining with the support of the Supreme Court. We understand that you're under the direction of the unelected governor. The state Supreme Court ruled these measures unlawful. Furthermore, as one of the largest districts in the state, we urge you to take a stand and be a leader in the fight against these mandates. Grow a spine and send a message to Albany. That was from my husband, Sean. I will continue to fight for what's right for our children. All we want is parents' choice. Let's stop the mandates now. I love our community, and I know the vast majority is for choice. Many of us have our differences, but as a community, we all want what's best for our children. And I know how happy they were to see their friends' smiling faces and their teachers' faces as they taught their lessons, even if it was just that one day. I hope this all ends soon. And if not, unfortunately, my husband, who is a New York City police officer, you make me cry. We're going to move. We're going to move. He's going to leave the NYPD. He'll have 10 years on. We're leaving. My son will start kindergarten next year. We're going to leave everything and move to a state that supports our freedom. This unelected governor said that this unconstitutional mandate she put in place from December 13th to January 15th. Now, as the numbers are plummeting, she extended to February 10th. Are we not seeing a pattern? This isn't about science. It's about control. One last thing. I went to a Knicks game last week along with 18,000 other people, maskless, Kathy Hochul's New York. The fact that you're all donning these ridiculous masks at this meeting is nothing more than theater. This is all so ridiculous at that point, and it's obvious. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Brooks Camino. There's one more after this.
So thank you for the time to speak. I also wanted to thank you guys for the letter you sent out. I know it was last month regarding, support of parent choice for vaccines. Hopefully you guys, stay the course, regardless of what happens, a few months from now, because, you guys did sign something, I guess, last summer that, you guys were, anti the mask and we were going to remove it. And then, we're right back in the situation. So hopefully you guys can, actually stand up this time and, really have, show us the, proof to us your conviction. I wanted to just touch on some of the science regarding masks, because it's confusing for a lot of people. There's a lot of different information out there. Okay. We have found the CDC, as a few other people have said, cloth masks do not work. That's why they recommend N95s now. Dr. Leanna Wen, CNN, says cloth masks are no more than facial decorations. She's one of the biggest COVID, concerned people out there. Same thing with Dr. Michael Osterholm. He was a Biden advisor. Again, masks do not work. Probably the biggest thing, the Bangladesh mask study was pushed in November to be the pinnacle of mask science. It was an RCT that was performed. Basically, they did not report their raw data in the research, which is almost never heard of. They reported an absolute risk reduction, but they didn't tell you that out of 340,000 people over 8 weeks, masks saved 20 cases. And what that boils down to is a p-value. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what p-value is, but a p-value of 0.4. A p-value of 0.05 or less means you accept the study because it's not due to chance. A p-value of 0.4 means that study should have been thrown out. And that was heralded by the media and everybody else. Hey, masks work. Look at this. Look at this. It's criminal what they've done with science. All these other mask studies that have been out there, they're based on lab findings that don't have good external validity to apply to the real world. They tape a paper mask on a face, shoot aerosols through it and say, oh, block this. Well, what does that mean in terms of transmission? They don't go over that. All the other studies that have done, they've looked at schools, and what they do is they cherry pick their data on 6 weeks where there's a lot of background noise. And they say, hey, these schools that implemented this had an 8% reduction in cases. Well, you can't really say anything from that because correlation does not equal causation, or correlation does not equal causation. So you can't really draw any conclusions from those studies, but people have been doing it and doing it wrongly. So it's confusing, but it's something that everybody needs to understand, that the science is really bad and really shaky. You have to look no further than look at the most recent curve of New York City and compare it to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Massachusetts. At that point, there were no vaccine passports. There were no mask mandates in those states. New York was the only one that had it, and their curve looked exactly the same. It's impossible to have the same curve if those measures are having any effect. It's completely impossible. And it's a joke to try and convince ourselves otherwise. There are consequences to masks, and some of this is trickling out now. Studies show that, kids suffer from social, verbal, psychological, intellectual development. They're stunted. There are studies that show this. The CDC shows that teen female suicide attempts are up 50% last year. That is absurd. And that is in large part of the measures that we're taking here to keep our kids safe. The solution cannot be worse than the problem. That brings me to Omicron. Okay, Omicron does not infect the lungs with the same severity that Delta does. We know this. It's 90% as lethal as Delta. If it has 90% lethality, that puts it like a 0.05 IFR. Okay, 0.05 IFR is like 4 times less than the flu. So we're doing all this for something that's 4 times less deadly than the flu right now. It makes no sense. Okay, people need a reality check. It's become almost like a religion to some people, we're not following the science. There's a doctor. Well, another thing from the CDC. CDC shows 75% of mortalities. 75% had 4 comorbidities. 4. Our kids don't have 4 comorbidities. This is insanity. This is crazy. Okay. There's a doctor out of Johns Hopkins, Dr. Marty McCary. He's estimated, I think the general consensus from the CDC is about 700 kids, sadly, that have passed away from COVID under the age of 18 in 2 years. Ridiculously sad. I don't wish that on anybody, but the numbers are the numbers. His estimates are that there are only 10 to 20 healthy kids in 2 years that have passed from COVID. 10 to 20. We're masking kids all day for 10 to 20 kids, maybe 10 kids a year. And it's not to diminish that, but we can't mask up everybody, infinitely for 10 kids a year. We send our kids on the school bus every day, right? There are 4,500 kids that pass, sadly, in school bus crashes, or not school bus crashes, oh my God, in automobile accidents every year. So our proportion to our reality is all out of skew, right? So we're okay taking a risk that's, 450 times, higher every day than what the actual risk is our kids of being ill or dying from COVID. There's other studies from the UK that show long COVID is not really a thing.
That was your 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'll just finish real quick.
Thank you.
So it is time to let people make the choice. If people want to wear an N95, that could be effective for them. They should have the choice to do that. If people want to get their kids vaxxed, they should do that. But the choice should be ours.
Let me just interrupt just because you did. Long COVID's not a thing. 14 months post-COVID.
Four kids.
Let me finish. You said long COVID's not a thing.
Nice.
14 months.
I'm not looking to argue with you.
14 months post-COVID.
Okay.
I'm still on oxygen. I still can't drive. I still have inflammation around my lungs, and I can't work. So please, I respect everybody here. Don't want to wear a mask. Don't believe in masks. Don't
Guys,
believe
let
in
Laura
vaccines.
speak, please.
But hey, I respect every one of you. You want parent choice. You don't want to wear a mask. Please do not disrespect
You're
me.
taking my words out of context.
Did he say long COVID is not a thing? Alex?
So what I was referring to,
Guys,
obviously, we're kids
Brooks,
in this context. So I'm going to wrap it up. I promise. I was obviously relating to kids. You may have different comorbidities than our kids do. I apologize if that's how you took it. That's not what I meant. And those studies were done. Those studies were done on children. And basically what those studies showed was kids that did not have COVID had more long COVID symptoms than kids that were positive. So that means that long COVID in kids is not a real concern.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
guys.
Brooks. Barbara Carroll. That's fine. Yeah, this one. Remember.
Hello, my name is Barbara, and I am the parent of a Sachem East senior.
Guys, please let her speak.
I am speaking tonight to urge you to take a stand for our kids and join other schools who are fighting to make masks optional. Thank you to those of you who are standing up, but we need all of you. It was already ruled last Monday by the New York State Supreme Court that the New York State mandate, or as more accurately described, the rule in schools, was improperly enacted, constitutionally impermissible, a violation of our constitutional rights, and unenforceable as a matter of law. The process that Governor Hochul used to institute the mask rule in schools is unconstitutional, and she is using the Department of Health to circumvent the legislative code. The DOH is an agency, and agencies don't make laws. Regulations and determinations issued by agencies have to be based on existing laws. There is no law passed in the New York State Assembly and signed by the governor that requires masks anywhere. Not at schools, not at businesses, nowhere. New York State DOH determinations that are not based on a law are illegal and unenforceable. Because there is no enforceable mask mandate law, Governor Hochul is instead illegally threatening school aid. For one day last Tuesday, our kids experienced freedom to breathe and see the faces of their teachers and friends. They were happy. They were smiling. Then it was all taken away the next day. I'm sure many of the board members received emails last week from Sachem parents requesting that you have an emergency meeting to vote if Sachem would join other schools to be part of the amicus brief. I was one of those parents. I received a reply from only 3 board members. From what I understand, only 4 members were even willing to hold a meeting, but this didn't happen because you needed 5 to agree to hold a meeting. This is sad and very disappointing. It would have been great to know that Sachem was on the side of justice. On Friday, January 28th, a letter was written by Assemblyman Edward Roth from the 19th District on Long Island and signed by 11 other Assembly members asking Governor Hochul to drop the appeal. They all agree that when Cuomo's original emergency declaration ended last June, that neither the governor nor the Department of Health possess powers to impose mask mandates. Our local lawmakers are fighting for us. Why aren't you? We are requiring our kids to wear masks when the CDC states cloth masks don't work. This makes absolutely no sense because most of the kids are wearing cloth masks. I am all for choice. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Up to you. I am, however, against the mandates, especially when they are unlawful, unconstitutional, and already decided as such by the Supreme Court. On February 21st, the education part of the mandate expires. You have an opportunity now to amend your 2022 reopening plan to state that masks are optional. I urge the board to do so. It's been almost 2 years. Enough is enough. Please do what's right for the kids and follow the law, not Governor Hochul's unconstitutional and unenforceable mandate. We need and want parental choice. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to say something real fast. Let me go first, and then you can go. After I go, you can go. Just quickly, and I just wanted everybody to speak before I was hoping that we didn't interrupt, but I understand why uncertain people did. I guess I'm just of a different generation, and that's fine. But when I'm asked a direct question, whether it would be by email or by text or by Facebook message or whatever it is, and it's not breaking any law as far as answering it, I answered it clearly and properly, which is, in order to hold a meeting, we needed 5. At no time while I was trying to get in touch with everybody did we have 5 at one time. I never said anyone's name. I never threw anybody under the bus. I never said who answered me, who didn't answer me, who was free, who was not free. We just couldn't. Yes, they see what's going on. Other schools are holding these emergency meetings, right? So they want to know, why the heck isn't Sachem? And I answered, whether it was by email or by the way I did it. There was no way to hold it. Do you want us to go on Zoom or come into the board room and turn the Zoom on with 3 people? It wouldn't have been a meeting. So to answer a direct question, and I'll ask Mr. Venator to chime in if he needs to answer a question on how a meeting can get called that quickly. We certainly can't do it with less. You could call a meeting, but you can't hold a meeting or accomplish anything without at least 5 people.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point, Alex. Our policy, New York State education law, anybody can call a meeting. You don't need 5 to call the meeting. Obviously, from a practical perspective, you need 5 to have a quorum, right? Okay. Obviously, timing. I mean, personally, I'm out of state attending business meetings. I get your email at 9-something in the morning. I'm not available. Not available. I actually missed the 9th period committee meeting the night before because I was traveling for business, first time in 2 years. By the way, maskless, which was great, right? So I get it. Okay. But that's all my point is. You could have called a meeting at any point in time. Anybody on the board could have called a meeting, right?
Yeah. Which one do you guys want to do first for board discussion?
Can we do the resolution first?
Sure we can.
Thank you.
Did you fill the card out? Can you come up, please, if anybody else? I'm sorry if you didn't fill the card out. There aren't any cards left either. Donna, just wait to get to the mic, please. Come to the mic and just push the button at the chair, just so everyone can hear you. It's hard to hear you when you're talking, when you're walking up.
I just wanted to respond to the meeting and the deadlines. The very last school district that signed on to the amicus brief didn't know if they would meet the deadline. So they adopted a resolution to send a letter that could be attached to the amicus brief as a friend of the court, even if they missed the deadline. And I just wondered why you guys didn't.
I passed along information. I speak daily with both Margaret Marchand from Locust Valley and Kerry Wachter from Massapequa. They have direct contact with the lawyer.
So why didn't
She gave me direct information that if it was not in the guy's hands by 12, it was not going to, that's what literally came. I could show you the text if you want. So once that time limit passed, I never bothered anybody else again about having the meeting.
Well, that's a
You're
good reason, but I
talking
would-
about the letter from Islip and Beth Page that came after the brief? Where,
No.
okay.
You know what? I don't usually speak because of medical disability. I can't. I'll send you the information. You could still attach your letter
Okay.
if you adopt
Yeah,
the
send that to us and we'll take a look at it, Donna. Thank you very much. Did you see it? I didn't see it. You send it to me? Okay. Here's how it's good. You did come up already and the public portion. I'll tell you what, we could talk. I promise you, you could address anybody. We'll come out to the audience. You could talk to any of us who you want right after. It doesn't work like that. We have to, we're going to stop. Well, I'll tell you what, Al, we're just going to have to, listen, we follow Robert's rules. That's the only way the meeting runs. You came up, you spoke. I tried to keep everyone silent. You can do it after.
Listen, I will be more than happy to spend as much time with you right after we finish. No, and I accept your apology. But understand, we sometimes, Mr. Bauman said we received about 100 emails. We received probably over 200 emails. And to send 200 personal emails out, it becomes
Guys,
very difficult.
we're not going to go back and forth.
But there's people in this audience right now that knew that I was on board, okay, on Tuesday night. They sent me an email back thanking me. But then they proceeded to go out and say that it wasn't on board Wednesday night. So it's a little bit disheartening that we did have 5. We had 5, but deadlines sometimes prohibited us from getting together. Even the people that agreed early on had difficulty leaving their classes and adjourning to a meeting immediately. Now, what the woman said in the back about attaching a letter to it, I have no problem with that. Absolutely. If we could still do that, I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good. We're just.
No, I accept. Listen, I will love to talk to you right after the meeting.
Yeah, let us do it after the meeting.
Absolutely.
I promise. I promise. I'm sorry. Which one, Laura? What did you say? Which one? Okay. Sabrina, did you want to start on this one, or it's up to you? Me, you, doesn't matter.
We're all on it. Laura, me,
Yeah.
you. I'm pretty sure everybody else.
We all got it.
We've been getting emails about Massapequa and other school districts, and we need to be more like them. I think we need to be more like Sachem. I believe in Sachem. I believe in the power of our community and this board. And I think that we need to make the resolution too that we are going to go mask optional. I know you have the resolution there. You could read it. I don't have the law lingo, so you could read it about going mask optional.
Just a quick question, Sabrina, Alex, before we get into that. I read the resolution, right? Shouldn't we be making a resolution to change our opening plan, which then kind of ties back to what we're about to do versus just a standalone resolution?
Yeah.
Chris, maybe that's a comment question for you, right? So in our opening sort of plan that we had to file with the state, right? Talked about masks will be required, et cetera, right? But I think the resolution seems to be a little bit separate. How do we tie them together so we're ensuring that this is then amended for what we want.
I think if the if the will of the board is to adopt the Massapequa and the Locust Valley resolution, I think that would have the same effect as modifying your reopening plan.
I'm looking
But
at
that's
the
up to
Island
you.
Trees one. Is that the one you're talking about?
I don't have any. I don't have any in front of me. No.
That's the one we were
Island
given here.
Trees. It was sent in an email, but we got a lot since then, so we might have just.
Yeah, you got version
is that-
controlling issues here because I got an Island Trees one.
That's the one we all have, but I think they're all the same. I think they just, I
Okay.
think they
Yeah,
changed
my
it
question was
do the-
only
do the
with
school
regards
district.
to making sure that we're tying it back to this, so there's no gotchas, no loopholes, right? That they're tied together, and if we have to refile this.
So it's basically
documented.
just a continuity of government, really, just to continue to move on. Like when it does change or expire, we don't have to meet, we don't have to direct Chris, we don't have to
Right.
do any of that. It's just, we want to put it in writing so that it's done.
So just so the community knows also, when it became unconstitutional, we did not have to take a vote. We did not vote. Nobody up here voted for that. It just, as a matter of fact, no mandate, no masks, right? So don't kid yourself, say somebody voted. Nobody voted, right? It was just, that's what it is, right?
So wouldn't you just make a motion to amend our reopening plan? Okay, that upon the expiration of the mask mandate set forth by the governor on February 21st, okay, February 22nd, okay, we adopt we amend it to read that masks will be optional as permitted by law.
Is that?
Can I do the motion?
I think it's more involved than just that simple. I think there's some language in here that Massapequa adopted, that Locust
Got it.
Valley adopted. I think is important because you got to say things like, you know, if it's re-adopted, a new resolution is adopted by the Department of Health. So I think if you're going to go in the direction of a resolution, I think you got to have a complete resolution, not something that simple as you're suggesting.
Right.
Alex?
Yeah, please, Laura, I'm sorry.
I agree. So the resolution, and again, then it's documented exactly where we stand when the mandate expires. However, this board feels, if they feel mask optional, we would have to vote on that. Then that's what it would be. But again, when I listen to Massapequa, Locust Valley, Island Trees, and all the other board members, oh my God.
Ma'am,
can
we
I
can't
talk?
call out. It's not like that. We can't call
We're
out.
trying to work through the process, right? Just hang
So
tight.
when you listen to every other board meeting that adopted a resolution, because unlike my other board members, because I do have long COVID, that's not real, I'm home 24/7, so I have a lot of time on my hands. So I do watch all the other board meetings. Every single other board that adopted this said if the mandate is extended, they were going to have to follow it, including Massapequa, Locust Valley, Island Trees, every other one. So although you could sit and laugh and make fun of me in the back, if you actually listen to the board meetings, that's what they said.
Stop, please.
So that is why it's important to adopt the resolution. This way, everybody knows, as Mr. Venator said, where we stand.
Yeah, just not to continue, right? But again, and you know, this is what you do, right? In the opening plan, there's several references to masks. I want to make sure as we build this resolution, we're addressing all of those, right? Visitors in the building, things like that. As long as it covers all of that, I think we're okay, right?
Yeah, and I think you also have to look at the timing of, reopening plans, then followed by,
Right.
2.60, and one could argue that 2.60 kind of superseded
Yeah, I
reopening
know.
plans.
Right,
So I think that a resolution, the one that Massapequa did or the one that Locust
Covers all
Valley
that?
did, I think if you want to go in that direction, I'm not telling you to or not.
Yeah.
I think that would cover you if
That's
that's
fine.
your intent.
I just want to make sure we're covered. That's
Yes.
Jim?
Yeah, just so I know. So the resolution basically is saying that when the mandate is lifted, if and when the mandate is lifted, or expires and not re-upped, we will go mask optional.
Yes, there's part of what the state wrote. I don't know if it was SC, I don't know where it comes from anymore. That comes from different agencies, but it says that you will follow, or you are expected to continue to follow your reopening plan. So this resolution will put us in a position to just say, yes, as of this date, it's amended. We don't have to talk about this ever again.
Now,
Like as
now
of
let
this
me
date,
just,
it's
let
going
me
to
just
change.
ask one question to
Yeah.
that. Now that's even regardless of what the numbers are or what Department of Health or anybody else says at that time, we are optional.
Well,
with this motion.
if they don't renew or anything. That's,
Right,
it
I know that.
becomes like,
No.
it becomes
What
non-mandated
I'm
anymore.
saying is, regardless of what the circumstances are on that particular date that the mandates are gone, we're going optional regardless.
That is the
of
opinion
anything.
of some, yes.
That's what
Yeah,
the
my
resolution
position
is.
We follow the mandate this way, we follow it the other way if there is no mandate. So I'm good with that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and the transportation is a different animal all in itself. That is not covered. That's a federal thing. That's not a state thing. Chris, you can write this for us that would more tailor towards us. I mean, one of the whereas is that it references Nassau County, Blakeman. Obviously, that's not going to fly for us since we don't have the same thing. Guys, can you please, it's just a lot of feedback, please. Chris.
Yes, we could.
Okay.
We could rewrite
And
this
we
one.
could do that ASAP where,
Send it to you tomorrow.
do we need to then do this again or can we vote on this right now?
Well, I think you need to have the resolution in front of you.
Okay.
You got to
Okay.
be able to read it. You got to be able to digest it. You have to have and make an informed decision.
Okay. Okay. Everyone's good with directing Chris to write that for us?
Yes.
That we can see it? Good.
I'll send it tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
And on the same thing, the letter that they're referencing, I know I slipped it in Bethpage. We could send it to everybody and then can we discuss that when we come back for the resolution?
Yep.
Thank
That'd
you.
be great.
So why don't we, at this particular point in time, if we're going to put together a resolution and we're going to put together a letter that we're going to attach to that amicus brief, why don't we set up a tentative meeting, okay, that we could schedule into our schedule and we could meet and discuss and either approve, okay, and vote on. So rather than, telling me at 9:00 in the morning when I have 35 kids staring at me, okay, let's set up a meeting. I don't care if it's at 3:30, 5:30, 7:30, but let's set up a tentative meeting where we could discuss this.
Can I just interject? I'm not sure what letter you're referring to. The appellate division is no longer accepting any letters. So I don't know what that's all about. Matter of fact,
Bethpage just did a letter yesterday.
but the court's not accepting it.
Oh, they won't accept the
They're
letter.
not accepting anything else at this point.
Okay.
Matter of fact, the court made a decision, the appellate court made a decision earlier that they were not accepting the letter from the 12 legislators. That wasn't accepted either. They
Got it. I
they
didn't
accepted the
realize
amicus
that.
briefs. So they're not accepting any additional letters.
Okay, I wasn't
No,
aware of
I
that.
think the letter to Beth Page was just to Governor Hochul.
Oh, okay.
And it was just stating again about no metrics, about no clarity, about, it did mention that the brief or whatever, but it wasn't something that was getting put
Okay.
into that. Because I think the wording of it was right on, one of our community members sent it to us, who's on our legislative committee, the other day, yesterday, or maybe even today. I know so many emails, I'm sorry, but it's a great letter. And I think that amending into inviting Governor Hochul to our March 16th legislative forum, I think being one of the largest school districts on Long Island, to show face, she keeps saying she's in communication, and we have yet to have one piece of communication with her, except for to tell us to put the mask back on that one day last year when the board voted that. I know we're probably lettered out, quote unquote, but
We sent the letter September 14th with asking for metrics. So if you want to do it again, we can have that discussion, but, right, okay.
And she didn't respond.
She
I
didn't
mean,
respond. She didn't respond, so, yeah. Hey, can I just jump in, Chris, a question? There's been a lot of accusations. I'm going to say accusations because that's what they were about. We're not following our oath to the Constitution. Can you please help set the record straight that, okay, one day it was unconstitutional. The masks went off. We were following our oath. They had a stay, okay? Can you tell us about that? Are we still following our oath to the Constitution when there's a stay in place?
Yes,
Tell
so we have a decision in the Nassau County Supreme Court that found that the mask regulation 2.60 was unconstitutional and was impermissibly enacted in accordance with the State Administrative Procedure Act. Sometime on Monday, that decision came out. Initially, there was a question whether or not there was an automatic stay of that decision. And our firm opined that there was not an automatic stay, and that therefore, come Tuesday, we didn't think that it was permissible to enforce the mandate, and that's the advice that we gave to all of our clients right? So we gave that advice. But then, the next day, the appellate division issued a temporary stay pending a final determination. So at that point, as of Tuesday, when that determination came out, that decision that the mask mandate was unconstitutional was no longer valid until there's a final determination by the appellate division. So determination of it, is this board following its oath? Right now, you are following your oath because there's no active determination that the mask mandate is unconstitutional.
Thank you. So the board is following its
you are,
oath.
You are following
Got it.
your
Thank
oath
you.
pertaining to the law that it currently exists. So you are following your oath.
Laura, again, I'm sorry, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said that. Jim, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that letter, and I'm not a big letter guy, as you all know, but the letter from Islip, I read that and I thought it was fantastic. It's a letter I could certainly sign on to, which again is asking for, rubrics and everything else. But it took away any of the argumentative things that have with the community members and even us on the board. It was really to the point. So if you guys don't have it, maybe you have it, Laura?
I don't think I
I'm
saw it.
sorry. I thought
Yeah.
but again, with a lot of the emails, I think I sent it to Sabrina. Did I send it
Yeah,
to
I
you?
have the ISLIP one for you.
Yeah,
we
I
all
think
we
that
all received,
letter-
but Beth page was similar, and Laura and I had discussed it
Right,
was
the Beth page one.
Yeah, that letter, I think that should go to the governor.
I mean, just
I
one
think
line.
it's a
The
good
state,
letter.
Jim, if you want to just listen to this, the state's failure to set and articulate clear goals and metrics had led to confusion among school boards and the public. The result of these failures have unnecessarily distracted school districts from their main charge of educating children in the healthiest and most efficient means possible. We had a community member come up here and speak about, she had brought up about homework help in the elementary. We really are distracted by COVID constantly. I can't imagine, I'm a teacher in a classroom and my head is spinning. I can't imagine our cabinet members. And I know we get screamed at a lot, but I know what you guys are doing, and you truly are trying to do the best you can with what's being put at us, because it's changing daily now. It's not even like, oh, weekly, monthly. It's every day. There's something new, a new email, a new protocol. We're being distracted from what we really should be doing, is educating our children. It's a huge distraction. And in all my 20 years of educating children this year, it's the worst. It absolutely is the worst.
Can we set a date for tomorrow? I don't know if that's enough time for Chris. First, I need Chris to say that we can get that, maybe at least the resolution, and whether we copy and paste that letter and send it as us, but something where we can get it out ASAP, just to not put more even work on your plate. At least we can get both done for tomorrow.
I guess
If people, I don't know if anybody's free, so you guys tell me. I don't care. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You tell me.
Are you
So
talking
I
Zoom?
think we need to get the document, we need to review it.
Are you
and then
talking
review it.
Zoom?
So we need to-
Zoom. We could do it Zoom. We talked about it publicly now, and we can go back on Zoom.
I'll be in Florida, but I'll do it.
24/7, I'm available.
Well,
I'm
you guys tell me
available all
what.
the time.
I don't know when everybody's free.
Friday, I'm out of town.
Okay.
For
So
almost a month.
Thursday,
We'll accept the Longwood. That's Saturday, but any other time I'm available.
So you could do, you want to
Tomorrow at
do it
8?
tomorrow, I'm good.
Yeah.
Vinny,
Yeah, I can make
Rob?
tomorrow. Just tell me what time and I'll
tomorrow at 8.
rearrange schedule.
Chris, tomorrow at 8. Is that not 24 hours notice at this point? I mean, even though we started this meeting at 7 and
So let me
we
go.
just had to get there.
I know we're going to talk a little bit about this issue. So under section 1606 subdivision 3 of the education law, it does talk about, and it speaks about the fact that any board member can call a special meeting with 24 hours notice. So that's the education law, but there are some decisions of the commission where, it has been determined that you can dispel with that 24-hour notice if it's deemed to be an emergency, and districts have dispelled with the 24-hour notice if it's felt that it was an emergency and couldn't wait to its regularly scheduled meeting. So you'd have to make a determination, is this an emergency that you need to dispel with a 24 hours notice? Is anything going to happen between now and, however, whenever, your next board meeting or early next week, et cetera, you'd have to make that determination. But so if you felt that it was an emergency, you can dispel with the 24-hour notice requirement, and that's up to you.
Can we get I know that this is legal advice, and if you don't want to give it out here, that's fine, but with 22 hours and this meeting starting at 7, Is that appropriate or inappropriate in your opinion?
If this board says that we feel that this is an emergency and important to do this right now, I'm not going to say you can't do it.
What's that?
Done with, I can have the resolution to you first thing in the morning.
I mean,
It's
we're
not a question
we're
of getting the
dealing with an
resolution to you.
emergency situation. We have, right, so we've got Friday. I know Jim's not available, but.
Yeah, but I'm okay with it anyway.
Okay.
Let's
Can we do Friday at 8? Is Friday at 8 okay?
8 a.m. or 8 in the morning?
No. Yeah, most of us are in class in the morning, so can we
Oh.
do it at night?
Friday at 8 p.m.
I'm not going to be free from about 5 to 6:45.
Okay.
I have a game. I'll coach my game and then I'm free. I'm
I'm
free all day
totally
except for that
free.
hour and 45 minutes.
I'm totally free.
Okay. 7:30. I'll do it from the bus.
7:30.
We're coming to Bayshore. Okay, 7:30.
7:30 on a Friday night. They got it. Yeah, just let the community know. We're putting
Is this
time.
virtual or live?
Zoom.
Zoom.
I'm just throwing it out there. I don't want any bad comments. I'm going to be at Magic Kingdom, but I will do the meeting at Magic Kingdom. So just don't make fun of me. Don't say anything. All right. All right.
Good. Yes. Yeah. No, I know. I didn't want to move on until we finish with that. Laura, did you want to talk about ID cards? Laura.
The ID cards.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, I didn't have any problems with it. So I just think we need a policy for the ID cards. Other people had issues with the way it was written. Mr. Isernia.
Well,
Yeah, I'll jump in on ID
Okay,
cards
please.
if you don't mind. We're working on a policy. I actually got handed a really good-looking policy today that another district uses for ID cards. So what I'd like to do is put this together. I was working on one with advice of counsel already, but I think it needs a little more shoring up. So what I'd like to do is get something to our policy committee as soon as possible. And as early as next week, perhaps try to convene a meeting of the policy committee where we would review the policy around ID cards for students and staff. And then we could bring it to the full board once the policy committee has reviewed it.
And just before Mike goes, and I'm not here to defend Mike. I'm sure he could talk for himself, but I think part of his argument was, and not to drag it into the mud and slow it down, part of it was, do we have a process, and did this follow the correct process? Did it go to the policy committee? Was the lawyer in the room, and did they write it together and have conversation in that room? And then did it get to us after? This kind of went from a different committee right to us, or right to Chris, and Chris wrote it, and then it got to us, and it just seemed maybe rushed and maybe not as.
Okay.
I think he just had some questions, and we didn't want to read it, do the first read, and then change it altogether. And I think just from reading emails back and forth, that's where I gathered where Mike was. So
that policy that was getting set up was not ready for prime time.
Yeah.
There was conflicting information. There was ambiguous information. There was information that we really need to talk about and consider. So it didn't go through the normal process. So I said, well, that's one of the reasons why it's in the shape it's in.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So the process, though, because it came out of a committee, Mr. Venator, maybe you can comment on that. So the policy came out of the safety committee. Administration, I think, along with you, wrote it on the IDs.
I did
Not
write it.
you. Okay. So, and then it was given to us. So I don't know any policy. Does it have to go through the policy committee, or can administration give us a policy for review?
I would have to look at your policy on
All right.
development of policies.
Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion on this here? Because I sit on the district-wide safety committee, which is where the recommendation came from, okay? It was put together very, very quickly. And I think it was put together quickly without, with some things that, there are things in there that need to be tweaked and improved. I think we should table, okay, any policy right now. Okay, let's come back with a sound policy that Dr. Pelletieri just mentioned. Let's run it by the safety committee and get their feedback. These are the people that are going to have to enforce this policy and get their feedback, and then we can present it to the board for the first reading. Okay, and we could have something that's sound, that's good, that we can put together.
Chris and Patty, do you think that we can do? I mean, I don't know when the next meeting is. Do you have the date of the next safety committee? So do you think that we can have all this done? Write it, get it to the policy committee, let comments be made, let the safety committee have it?
The policy committee was created, okay, to review old policy, okay? So that we were updating policies that were 10 and 15 years old that hadn't been updated in that amount of time.
That's what I thought.
The policy committee is not technically supposed to be looking at new policy, but rather let it, as a recommendation come from the superintendent that this is our policy, okay? Let it be seen by the district-wide, security and safety committee, and let them get a glance at it, because they might come up with some ideas and say, hey, you know what, this is great, but why don't we do this? And then present it to the board for the first reading. I think that's the logical path that we should be doing with this here.
Correct.
That's my opinion.
The policy, I was on the policy committee from when it started, when I was on the board. And again, some of our policies were so outdated. That's what the committee was there for, to review them. Marianne, our attorney, sat with us. So we were reviewing policies that existed. This was a brand new policy. So in my opinion, I'm only one board member, administration on a brand new policy, it doesn't go through the policy committee. That's just my opinion. The policy committee was created to update policies that were on our books from 1990 and never updated.
So why would the policy committee sit back and look at a policy being offered for first reading that is conflicting, confusing, ambiguous, and vague? So I should do nothing.
So that's why we're having a discussion.
Well, but you don't have a first reading of it.
But again, you can't have a discussion through email.
I'm
That's why
trying not
it's
to
here.
discuss by email.
I'm good.
All right, so can we just agree with the school safety committee meeting? Because we have administrators, we have security guards, we have all these people who know how the buildings run, what is
And who are gonna have to
reasonable
enforce it.
expectations with the wearing of the badges. Come up with a plan. We will then get a read, and then we could add in or take out what we don't agree with or what we feel needs to be in there.
So we'll table until we get to that point, and then we'll have the discussion.
While all this is going on, I thought we just also decided to put in practice starting to wear ID badges. Are we there yet? Do we have the lanyards? Are we started to do a practice? Like Seneca does it, right? Seneca's
Yep.
got their ID badges, right? I think we need to sort of move that along.
The
get kids
practice
sort of-
right now is that
practice.
students
Let's get this going. right?
have
So it's
them.
not, right?
I know that they have their lanyards now. The practice is not that they wear them everywhere. It's that they have them right now.
Right.
So
Yeah,
there's
these are
there's
the
a
kind of things we
difference
need to
there.
discuss as well. I mean, do we want our kids wearing their ID cards at the bus stop when they're outside? Or do we,
How they get on the bus? I mean, we can go through all of that.
I mean, you want your kid to have
Yeah.
to surrender the ID to the bus driver. I mean, there are some
I
things
don't
in
know.
there,
That's a good
this is the
question.
kind of
We gotta
stuff we got to
talk
talk about. I'm not even convinced that we should make it mandatory at the middle school level. I think we should let building decide that. But yet I can rationalize at the high school level because you could have 18 to 21-year-olds in those buildings, like we know. So maybe in that we make it mandatory. We got to have a whole discussion about ID cards. This is not, and you got
But we also
you
had-
got community resistance just 3 years ago about this, right? So,
but we also had people entering middle schools last year or the year before who weren't students, right? So
Well,
again,
big
big concerns we got to talk about.
Let's
right?
talk about that, right? We had the one kid, the 9th grade boy, who, because of a family tragedy, went to see his friend who was in the 8th grade and went to the school with his 8th grade friend. Right now, he did that because he actually probably was looking for help because he was upset. But with his policy, would he have been turned away at the bus? I don't know. I don't know if I'm happy with that. So there's things we need to discuss.
Yeah, and we'll discuss them after we get through these other channels, and we'll have this discussion is not ending here, so we'll definitely have it again. Chris, please.
Could I interject with a thought?
Of course.
And if you don't want me to, I'll stop.
No, please.
So,
Guys in the audience, please.
so our firm has written these.
Guys, hold on, Chris. I'm sorry. Please.
So our firm has written these resolutions for various, school districts, including Locust Valley. I mean, I can read you the resolution right now, and you don't need to have a special board meeting on Friday night at 8:00. I mean, I'm going to take out the pieces that pertain only to Nassau County because we're not in Nassau County. But I could read it. It's similar to what you've almost exact to what you
Any
have in front of you.
objections? Good.
So-
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. We ready? And now I'll make sure it's typed and sent over to district clerk tomorrow. So there's no confusion. Are we ready?
Yep.
So here's the resolution. Whereas on or about November 24th, 2021, the New York State Department of Health adopted Emergency Regulation 10 NYCRR 2.60, which provides, among other things, that indoor masking may be required under certain circumstances as determined by the Commissioner of Health based on COVID-19 incidence and prevalence, as well as any other public health and/or clinical risk factors related to COVID-19 disease spread. And whereas on or about December 10th, 2021, Acting Commissioner of Health Mary T. Bassett, MD, issued Commissioner's determination on indoor masking pursuant to 10 NYCRR 2.60, which, among other things, required universal masking of teachers, staff, students, and visitors to preschool to 12 schools over age 2 and able to medically tolerate a face covering / mask, and regardless of vaccination status. And whereas emergency regulation 10 NYCRR 2.60 is set to expire February 21st, 2022. And whereas the Board of Education wishes to memorialize that ordinarily it would be the board's policy that each Sachem Central school teacher, student, staff member, and/or visitor generally has the individual discretion to determine whether they will wear a face covering while on school property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Sachem Central Union Free School District hereby declares that, effective upon the expiration of 10 NYCRR 2.60 on February 21st, 2022, or effective upon its earlier repeal or vacature, and provided that no other law, rule, regulation, decision, and/or order is subsequently enacted, adopted, and/or issued required face coverings in P12 schools, it shall be the policy of the Board of Education that each Sachem Central School District teacher, student, staff member, and/or visitor will have the individual discretion to determine whether they will wear a face covering while on school property.
Just one change, just so there's not a talk of that we did it wrong. With it just the Sachem Central School District, not Union Free.
Okay, I'm sorry. With
Any-
that correction.
Everybody, can I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Scavo, seconded by Mrs. Pickowitz. All in favor? Opposed? Let's go. Good. Enough. Okay, good, that's fine.
Can I just go back to the ID thing for 1 second?
Yeah,
Sorry.
please, hold on 1 second.
I don't want to kind of
Thank you,
throw
Chris.
another thing into the mix, but there are digital IDs that like our photographer studios do offer. That is also an option. Just something to look into, the future that they have, where it's have it on their phone, so if they're asked for it, they can show it. It could be a second option too, when a child approaches a building, if they're not wearing the mask, their badge. Their badge, that they can just say, 97% of our students secondary could just say, here, I'm so-and-so, that I'm in the right building and can go.
I like the idea, but it conflicts with our no cell phone policy, right? So you just got to be careful.
Well, it's as they're walking in. Most kids
Which-
were putting it on their pocket as they walk in.
They all have them, I get it.
If we get to the point where we're saying you have to have it and not necessarily show it unless asked for it, then
Right.
you could do something like that.
I'm just
If
saying
at
as
the
a
end of-
backup, just for the committee
Okay.
to look
I think it's a good
into.
idea.
I could give you, I had spoken to a photographer. They have so many things that they do. I know they're great with printing out the IDs also. So just something to think about.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Alex, what was that first and second in Allison's
It's
absence?
Mr. Scavo, Mrs. Pickowitz.
That
All
was
in
a
favor was
unanimous?
anonymous, yes.
There's one extra item we're talking about tonight, which was board correspondence, I think.
Yep.
So I've actually raised that several times. Again, as a new board member, when I came in, you get the ton of emails from the community, right? So my take on it was, who responds to these when they're addressed to the board? And some of the response was, well, I'm an individually elected person. I'm going to go ahead and respond. And I don't think the community needs 9 different responses. So that's why I said, should we have something centralized? And then if there's an open action item, we should be able to talk about it in open session, right? So again, I keep coming back to that, especially with the amount of emails that we get that are addressed to the board. If there's an individual one, then we can choose to respond depending on, the content and frankly, how respectful the email was to us, right? But these generic board emails that come in, we do owe the community a response, and just want to see, how do we do that, right? And where do we go with this? So I'll throw it out there.
Sabrina? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, Laura. I was looking and then I just turned.
Okay. So I'm a former board president. Mr. Kiernan's a former board president. Mr. Scavo's a former board president. So what you have to remember is, as board members, I don't, number one, we're not paid. I don't know if everybody knows that, but we're not paid. So that's just, we want to volunteer our time for our community. So a board member, any one of us, has no more power than any of you sitting there. Me as an individual, Laura Slattery, I have no power at all as a board member. My power only comes when I'm sitting here and we as a board majority, like we just did on the resolution, pass a resolution or pass anything. So my personal feeling when I was elected 7 years ago was, my personal opinions and my personal feelings are different from my role here as board trustee. When I sit here, I have to represent all 12,000 students, plus our staff, plus our administration. And with something like the amicus brief, I wanted to ask our attorneys questions. I had questions. I think I had that right to ask questions. And again, I agree that the governor did not pass the mandate the way it should have been done. I agree, it was unconstitutional. I 100% agreed with that decision. But again, to discuss the brief, I have to ask our attorney questions before I raise my hand and just vote on something. At the time, Alex had sent us to have the emergency meeting and had to be by 12. I'm home all day. I don't work anymore. So I was able to answer him. But we still didn't have the copy of the brief. So then I know other board members work. So now I'm trying to call or text. I always felt my role as a board president, when I wanted to have special meetings or emergency meetings and other people who were on the board with me, I was calling, texting, trying to reach to get to that 5. So what happened in this case, Alex couldn't get 5. I get it. We're being bombarded because, again, not everybody knows what it takes to get 5. We have teachers at work who can't leave their classroom. And so what was posted, and this is where I disagree with it, on a social media site that's not Sachem Moms, where it's a cross-section. It was posted on a social media site.
Is Sachem Moms an official page of the Sachem School District?
No, but
Oh,
is
okay.
Sachem Parents for Choice an official page?
No,
of
I'm just
the
saying, you
Sachem?
said it like that it was,
No,
it
no,
would have been
no.
okay if it was that
No,
one.
no. I'm
Okay.
not saying either one's okay. Meredith sitting there knows how I feel about posts on social media. So when it was posted there and said he couldn't get 5 board members, other board members were slammed. And for that, I felt bad. And again, I don't get along with all other board members, but I know they're working. I know they couldn't answer. So to me, my role as board president was not at that point to post on social media and call out other board members. What a board president is supposed to do is have a cohesive board. You're supposed to be the leader. You're supposed to try and do, and at some point there was 5. So at some point when you had 5, can we meet at 7 a.m. before everybody goes to work? Can we meet at 10? I'd be on the phone, trust me, answering all night, trying to get, again, I'm being accused, I was accused by this board, some of them, not being transparent, because as a board member, I called a special meeting to fill a vacant board seat. I called board members after I was asked to do it to make sure I had 5. I then went to an attorney who wrote a legal opinion on how to do it. It was posted on the Sachem website. I was elected, and then the first meeting, Mr. Isernia, nothing against you, you had a problem with how I was. I wasn't transparent. The community didn't pick me, even though prior, Rob, have you filled vacant board seats by appointment? So, and I didn't give the new board members a chance to approve me. So now there's new board members here. They could have, at that point, you all could have raised your hand and said, she did it illegal, remove her. All of you could have done it at that point. That wasn't done. I don't feel that that was not transparent. What I feel is, instead of posting on a social media site, pick up the phone as a board president and start calling. And again, answering correspondence, when I answered, and because I can't share my personal opinion, I do now because of the situation we're in, I would say, thank you for expressing these concerns. We are going to discuss it as a board in public. I'm going to bring it to administration because my personal things don't mean anything. It only matters when I sit here and as a majority we vote. And let me tell you, I can go back, a community member, Mr. Piccarello, when you were board president, posted about an incident that happened at Sachem East. It did not name names. That incident was on News 12. And you reached out to the community member to ask her to take down the post from social media about a board member because it wasn't appropriate to call out a board member on a social media site. Yet, all of these board members were called out, and I don't think that's right. We're volunteers, and for everybody who thinks we're doing it for the money, we're not. Everybody who thinks we're doing it because we don't want to advocate for kids, we're not. I have spent 20 years of my life advocating for kids, and that's what I do. We can disagree. You can disagree with me. You can think whatever you want about COVID. I respect what all of you think about COVID. You think it's not real. You think it's a cold. You think it's a flu. That's your right.
Stop.
Hey.
Brooks. Let's do it after.
Sit. But what I'm saying is, you can all think masks don't work, COVID's not, I don't care. The vaccines don't work. That is your right. I respect that. I just ask for respect back. And that's all. And I ask, wait. Hello.
Guys, let her speak. Let her finish, please.
So all I'm saying is, in my opinion, as board president, there was a way to
Guys,
get
let her talk. Let her finish, please.
In my opinion, as board president, there was a way you could have gotten 5 because at some point, all 5 of us agreed to meet. Instead, all these board members were thrown under the bus when you could have had a meeting because the time was extended. So when it comes to social media, when we post on social media, Meredith posted on social media. She was called out. We had to have a special meeting about it. This has been a problem, and I personally don't agree. I don't agree with answering all emails the way I personally feel, because when I'm sitting here, the attorney can tell me something and I could change. Other board members could say something and I can change. Because personally, Laura Slattery, community member, does not mean anything. When I sit here as a trustee and our board talks about and decides something, that's what I feel. And I do feel the role of the board president is to not protect his board, but to be a leader. And I don't think that's what happened.
Oh, well, respectfully, I'm going to disagree, and I'll give you 2 things. Number one, if I would have responded to an email that asked the same question, I would have responded it to the same exact way. In order to call or have a special meeting, right? Anybody could call one. In order to have one, we need a majority. At this time, at the time of the correspondence, we do not have one. We never had 5 people at the same time, ever. We didn't at that time. We didn't later. And then the next day, a bunch of us were at work and we didn't have 5. So that's number one. That email, if it came in as an email, would have been posted on social media. It would have been the same thing. I'm sorry that I'm accessible, but it's going to get out there that here's how you have an emergency meeting. And why don't you have one? Because we don't have enough. That is factual. And the fact that you're angry about it, That's your personal feelings, and too bad. That's fact. Fact. Second, I'll get to you in 1 second, Jim. Second, you know what? You just told a whole tale about how you got appointed to this board. You never called this guy, and you never called that guy. You never called. I picked the phone up and I called everybody. I keep calling, texting, calling.
When I was board president, I did. When
That's
I
a lie,
was board
Laura.
president, I did.
That's not factual.
Did they have 24-hour
That's not
notice?
factual.
Wait.
Multiple times when I was just a trustee on this board, you didn't call me every time, and that's what got me agitated. That's what got me agitated. You can remember the history that you want, but there's fact and there's what you're remembering. And I don't know what's so hiding about everything. Let me tell you something. Information breeds confidence. Hiding breeds fear. What are we hiding about? Here it is. Do what you want with it. You don't agree? Tough. You do agree? Great. But we must make decisions. And I'm sorry you feel like that, Laura, but I'm sorry. You didn't just give accurate information to the community at all. We never, ever had 5. I emailed, I text. I'm not calling Rob at 10 a.m. when I know he's got class, so I'll shoot him a text. Sabrina's in class. Matthew's in class. I can run up to his room, but I got to be free too. I'm not going to just drop everything that I'm doing. Vinny said he was on a plane at one point. I knew he was away. We never, ever had 5 at one point. I never said, Vinny said no. I never said Jim said no. I never said Sarah. I never said anybody said no. I never said Matthew said yes.
Alex, can I just ask? Just clarification.
Yeah.
All these emails knew exactly the 3. They were wrong because I was always available.
Yeah.
But
did that come from me?
They knew 3 names. So I'm just curious, and I'm not. Hold on. Hold on. I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm really not. I'm
He's
really
not.
curious.
The social media
I'm
people.
curious how.
No, we have a responsibility to the community. They're not social media people. They're not social media people. This is our community. When we're what?
Can I?
No, we can do it after.
Can I clarify, please?
We're off topic because I asked
Respectfully,
a question about board
I stopped the other
correspondence.
person. We're going to stop the other one.
We're off topic. I
Did
asked
you
about
answer
board
the-
No,
correspondence.
this is board correspondence.
Can I just please?
All right, hold on. Let Matthew
I want
finish.
to answer
then Sabrina.
Matthew's question.
Oh, okay. Good.
So what happened,
Please.
Matthew, is most of you have work and you don't get home till later. I got home at 3:30. I sat at my kitchen table while my kids did their homework, and I responded to emails that questioned me directly. And I just said, yes, I was for a meeting. I'm not available till 4 o'clock. This is my stance on the resolution and the decision of the judge. And it was kind of copy and paste. I edited a little bit, and I responded to people who specifically reached out to me, not a big copy and paste that we kind of all got. So probably by the time you got to respond, they only had heard back from a few board members at that point, because I know that eventually you were.
Does that make sense? Okay.
So that's it. So
I just want to answer.
just so you know, so then it came out that was
I will
only
try
3.
to respond quicker. I'm so
That's
sorry.
what happened.
And-
Some people weren't able to respond to
Okay,
maybe
that makes
7,
sense.
8 o'clock
And,
at
and
night.
while this is off topic, I'm just going to address it because Laura brought it up, and then Jim's going to go, and then Vinny, just so we stay in order so that everybody talks. Yes, we're volunteer. Yes, we get paid. Nobody forced it. No, excuse me. No, we don't get paid. I apologize. But nobody forced our hand to sit here. If we don't want to answer emails, that's your right. If you want to answer emails, that's your right. We can have Chris Venator right now give us his legal opinion. We have our First Amendment right. We are elected as individuals, not as groups, and we are held accountable. How can we be held accountable if we don't want to tell people where we stand? Maybe they're going to say, hey, he's not for this. I'm not going to vote for him because he's not for it. I just don't agree with him. That's how you hold people accountable, whether it's us or your town council people that maybe are changing zone and you don't like the way your neighborhood's going, or your county who's making laws and passing budgets, or your state people who are pushing Kathy Hochul. That's accountability. I'm sorry, but I never threw anybody under the bus, and I never said anybody's name. All I said was, here's how you have a special meeting, because I can't sit here by myself or with 2 other people because it's not a meeting. It's not an official meeting. We can't pass anything. And I never had 5 at one time. Jim, please. And I'm sorry you don't think that's leadership, but that's just information. I never gave the launch codes for Sachem.
As a past president, and I know it was many years ago, and maybe Rob, you did this too. Community members often came up here and criticized the board on a number of issues. That comes with the position. But as a president, I never allowed individuals get attacked, board members. Never. But Sal Trippi was president. I was the community member attacking a board member, if you recall, Rob. I was out there attacking a particular board member, and Sal Trippi broke his gavel, calling me out of order. Sal Trippi was my friend, and he called me out of order, and our friendship had a couple of problems there for a while. We're friends again, but that's what a board president does. Now, I notice you have no problem when somebody is criticizing you. You jump right on them. Which,
I said, let
okay.
her speak, I could take
Which,
it. That's what I
okay.
said.
Which, okay. But is that what you want? Is that what this board wants
Are
to
you
do
two
now?
in the same meeting I am? I said, let her speak, I could take it. I never stopped her. What meeting are you listening to?
You know, you're very critical of
take it.
everybody that speaks against you. You know what? Why don't you grow up, Alex Piccirillo? You're the worst
Chip
president we
Kiernan.
ever had. And they could cheer
You know
for
what?
you all
You know
they
what?
want.
It's nice that
Alex,
you're awake
you're
now.
at zero.
It's nice that you're awake.
Yeah, I'm awake.
Alex.
now.
I think we
Alex.
need to end.
Yeah.
I think we need
Good. Yeah.
We're gonna.
Okay. Vinny, we're gonna end it. pretty
So, hey,
quick.
guys, so I brought this up not in relation to this specific issue. That's a whole nother conversation if anybody wants to have it. I brought it up based on correspondence that comes in on many issues, whether it's a parent concern about extra help or something. That's where this started from for me 7 months ago. I brought it back up several times. That's where I started this. There's some legitimate
Yeah, so-
issues on both sides, but that's where I wanted to take this conversation.
So just so you know, anything that's forwarded as far as school related goes, I say, hey, Chris, can we get this to the appropriate person? And then I respond, I forwarded your message and you should get a response from the appropriate
Yeah,
person.
I'm talking
That's
about when
the
we get
appropriate
when we get a
response.
generic when we get a generic board that comes into
But
the
when they
board,
say, hey, when it's addressed to you or, sometimes
yeah,
it's
if
names
the rest
in
of the-
there.
right. Everybody's got freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Alex, nobody say that. You have the right to say what you want. Sometimes, you have to, it doesn't mean it's always right to say certain things, right? We all need to know
But
that.
if the people don't like what I'm saying, they can vote me
Yeah,
out.
and this is not about you. This is
I'm
not
just
about you.
saying in general.
That's not about you. It's general about the board. And I get it. We're individuals. But as a board, I'm trying to figure out how do we get communication back? Case in point, I'm trying to walk a fine line because some of it was in exec. We had a concern with the student. There was some issues, had to do with suspensions. Nobody was getting back to this parent, and they kept coming to the board. And all I'm saying is, how do we then get a board response? I know
Because the board was never happy
Hold
with
on.
the response.
No, hold
That's
on.
what took so long.
No. Hold on. Dr. Pelletier has
We
stepped in
have-
on many occasions to do that. And again, don't be defensive. I'm trying to figure out, is there a better way to do it? If you think there's not, so be it. We'll send nine
Vinny, in
nine
that,
issues.
but in that instance, that one instance that
Yeah,
you
go
just
ahead.
brought up,
Yeah.
we had a written response and there was 9 different opinions of, oh, that's appropriate, that's not appropriate, maybe
Yeah.
we should tweak it. You gave
So there's
edits,
several-
so that
there's
instance
there's
was the
several
one.
examples we can go in. Again, this is not an argument here. I'm trying to figure out how do we now get more efficient as a board? Stuff comes in. How do we kick it to the community? Got it. Boom. Under advisement, whatever. We discuss it, and then we get a resolution to the community. That's all I'm trying to do. That's it. If you don't
Alex,
want
I
an
think it's
efficient
more
board,
of
you
how
don't
do
have
we
an
know
efficient
that
board.
things were followed up on?
Yeah.
I mean, I had sent it out an email the other day about a situation and I had requested just a follow up because maybe you are responding. I don't know that you are. So so we were discussing a secretary or someone or something where we said, hey, this is how we responded to this email, just so I know I don't have to follow up with that email or that I'm going to keep an eye on it to make sure that that was followed through.
Yeah, so before
That's
you
the
guys,
piece
right
that
before you guys
I'm-
got on, I was hitting reply all, and
Right.
some weren't happy with that. So to make everybody try to be happy,
Okay.
I was just then hitting reply. So if you guys want me to hit reply all, and I'll still address it to Dr. Pelletier or forward it and just say, hey, we got it. I forwarded it to the
It's
right
ju- it's
person,
just, again,
and
goes
then
back
we'll
to
get
what
there.
I asked about with issue tracking, like to Sabrina, right? Things come in, where are they down the line? So it's just the way I work, and I think I like to see things to fruition. I want to make sure we're getting the community members their response. That's all.
Yep.
It's just more efficiency.
Yep, no problem. Rob, do you want to go? Done?
Yeah, listen, I'll give my opinion.
Yep.
I served on this board for 14 years with many presidents, many very good presidents, with many good board members, okay? When correspondence comes in to the board, all right, the only person that speaks for the board is the board president, all right? None of us should be responding, okay, on behalf of the board unless, it's directed, the email is directed directly to you, okay? And that's my personal opinion. The email should be friendly. It should be CC'd to every board member so that we understand where it's coming from. Now to Alex's point, yeah, people have had problems with his responses, but at the end of the day, he's the board president. The board president should respond. Okay, but next year, Matthew's the board president. He should respond on behalf of the board. All right, He should respond on behalf of the board. I'm going to take that, Matthew.
Mike
as a no.
Icernia.
All right. So at the end of the day, like I said, I'm going to respond, okay, when I feel I need to respond to community members, okay? But to what happened recently, to be able to respond to 250, emails, 200 emails, it becomes really, really difficult to do that. And I'll be honest with you, I'm the type of person, if you know me, if you say to me, Mr. Scavo, I really want to talk to you, could you please call me? I'm going to make time to call you. I've had conversations with people sitting in this room right now that exceeded an hour and 20 minutes. I have no problem. I think it's more personable to reach out and speak to a community member directly, because you could say a lot more on the telephone than you can going back and forth in email. All right. So I personally think when it comes to the board, it should come from the board president and superintendent. Okay. And when it's sent to individual board members, they have a right to respond the way they want. All right. When I say the way they want, keep it cordial, keep it friendly. Okay. Because you do represent the school district. And that's just my opinion.
Laura, please. No,
Okay.
please.
So, absent of a specific delegation of authority by the school board to act as a representative for the school board for a specific purpose, individual board members have no greater rights or authority. So the thing is, when you were board president, you may have responded and everybody knew, thank you for your email, I'm forwarding here. What caused a problem is if the board president responds on behalf of the board with his personal opinion on how he feels about that matter. And so what if somebody here disagrees? So now I've always answered every email. Thank you. Now I answer specifically my opinion. But again, it goes against normally what I would think. I think that I sit here and that's how I show transparency to my community. But it's now different. It's now changed. So when I answer emails, I am answering with my personal opinion or how I feel on a topic.
Can I?
Like you said,
Please.
Alex, that's why the community elects us.
Yeah.
So-
Can I have a motion and a second to move into executive session for the purpose of legal advice, if we have to, regarding social media and of calling of special meetings? Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Slattery, all in favor? 10:40. Good night, everyone.